Hello everyone, it's episode 27, season 2 of the LightBringers podcast. I lied, it's episode 28. So I've been stun locked apparently, according to Kroof, and I'm going to turn everyone's microphones on now. Thank you very much for watching live or on the internet, listening, watching, everywhere, doing the things, and everyone's very excited today. Let me just make sure that I've actually got the right scene up, because that would actually make sense. Cool! Didn't change anyone's names or anything, because everyone's the same person as they were last week. You're actually all dancing in time with the music there. That was impressive. I normally have a little bit of music for the first like 20 seconds or so to like warm us up and get us in the feeling. Although you can't hear it, I can. It makes me feel good.
We just get in sync.
Realized.
Yeah, you did.
We might be getting echo because I don't have my earphones in this time.
Oh no.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
You seem okay.
For a second, I thought Boots was gonna be like, "Oh shit! Just realized I have to leave right."
I gotta go.
Sorry, gotta go get some snacks.
That wouldn't be completely unusual, honestly.
No, it's happened
Let's
before.
not lie to ourselves. I hope everyone is good, listening at home, live or not. We have got a little bit of an interesting show today. I didn't realize that while we're doing this, there is a World v World restructuring beta event about to start with a reset. So that is a thing.
Logging in.
Sorry?
I'm logging in. You reminded me.
Wow.
Oh, good lord. We've lost Boots. Boots has to do something else. You know what? Like when I do online therapy with like kids or adults and they're just doing something on their PC when I'm doing sessions, I'm like, go for it. If it helps you focus, like it helps some people focus doing something else. Over and not there listening to music, it does.
Let your children co-host, basically your grown adult children.
Oh no,
co-host,
adults as well.
do other things while they do the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard for us.
You can. I don't mind. I'm sure you do. I mean, you know, life is happening around us. World War Beta is not live yet. Oh, not till later. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, I'll stick around then.
Yeah. Thanks, mate. Everyone's just kind of got it as clickbait on Twitch. That's why I'm just like, come now, it's on. No, it's not. Liar. Okay. So I thought in past weeks, in the recent times, we've been talking about other MMORPGs, and there will be a point in time where I actually get this other podcast going once things have settled down in life a little bit. But for the meantime, I thought we'd bring a little bit of that in today, but also talking about Guild Wars 2 in relation to it. So what I've kind of titled the podcast as today is looking at YouTube, like doing random things right now. It is called "What Could Guild Wars 2 Borrow / Innovate on from Other MMORPGs?" And also we're going to start first of all with kind of the Halloween event. Although, let's do a quick mini intro, because I got DMs telling me saying, we like the intro, why don't you do the intro anymore? And I'm like, you don't like the intro, you just like the random banter that we have. that's what it is. I mean, honestly, but we don't have that much time. So, very, very quickly. Rook, what do you do?
Hi, I'm Rook, and I do stuff here on Twitch and over on YouTube, and I am you can find me at Rookery. I don't know, Jebro, I felt like now I'm very conscious about not doing any specific banter. Like I can't do fun banter because
we can do banter. The whole thing's banter.
Is it? Or
This is banter right now.
Like,
Bantercast 27 episodes.
Is what's happening right
28.
now playful banter?
This second is yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, great. Well, hi, I'm Rook or Rookery. I love playful banter, and I do a lot of it here, apparently, as well as over on my own channel, which is Rookery, ROOKURI. You can also find me on YouTube at the same. You can find me on Twitter at Rookery_. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much everywhere. But I love playing MMOs, and I'm excited to talk about our topic today because there are a lot of things that I think the entire genre of MMOs can all learn and adapt as more and more games keep hitting the scene, and it really just benefits all of our games. So I'm excited to talk about this, and yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Great to have you here. Kroof. Hello.
Hello everyone, I'm Kroof. I do a lot of YouTube videos over on my YouTube at Kroof. I also stream here on Twitch most days of the week, and doing a lot of videos about general balance changes and overall reactions. Next video is going to be about Scourge and maybe Alacrity. I don't know. It's a conversation piece, but excited to be here.
You do like talking about the game. That is very true.
I know.
We do. That's what we do here. Thank you very much. Awesome to have you here once again, Kroof. And also Boots. Slipper.
Banter.
Okay, thanks very much. Good job.
Banter.
Twitch.tv/
Boots?
underscore.
Question mark?
I remember everyone else's information.
I actually haven't been streaming at all recently.
I can tell.
I know. But I've
been out of a mod job.
And they're on YouTube. So go check out that Spectre video. It's I enjoy playing it. It's a lot of fun.
Just playing the video randomly, just in the background.
No, sometimes I just kind of put it on in the background while I'm doing other things. Listen to my own voice.
Do you all do that? Sometimes I actually do go back and watch my videos because I'm my number one fan.
I do.
Oh, I can't stand. I honestly hate listening to myself. If I'm even like putting bookmarks in for a YouTube video, I mute it and I just skip through and I'm like, and that's where that starts and that's where that starts.
Oh, wow, okay.
I hate it. I hate having to subtitle my own videos. I don't know why. Like, it's good to watch your stuff, and it's good to be able to, like, you need to be able to give yourself your own feedback. I tend to do that more in the actual moment as I take stock of things as I go, but some people do watch back. I can't stand listening to myself.
I have to do chapters for the podcast, so...
I have actually, not jokingly, I have watched those montage videos that I made every once in a while.
How do you say montage?
Those over and over again. many
I watched
times.
some videos. Like my commentating back in the day, I used to have to watch them and have to listen to them, which was really, really, really like, I get what you mean. Especially when I said something wrong, and I'd just be like, oh God, Jebro, what the you just completely messed up that ability name. Or I said like Hammer 4, which everyone like got more than banished at the time, to be fair, because everyone just forgets the name anyway. So fuck it. Anyway, thank you, Boots. Great to have you here. We're going to smash right into this. Smash it. Okay.
Much like Hammer 4.
Hammer 4. When Hammer Guardian was a thing, Kroof, oh my God. I just lose and lost my shit. It was so fun. It was so fun to cast. Anyway. So, as we know, there's kind of many MMORPGs that kind of borrow from each other from time to time. There are many systems within Guild Wars 2 that have borrowed from, everywhere, honestly, because Guild Wars was not an MMORPG in the strictest terms of things. It was an MMORPG when you went to, the community areas, I suppose, but it was mostly an RPG cooperative experience, right? So they had to kind of start from scratch because Guild Wars 2 is like a proper MMORPG, but done in their way, right? So they borrowed things from examples: Warhammer Online, Dark Age of Camelot. They didn't borrow from ESO because they came around at the same time. Other RVR games, World v World. Then questing wise, like that was very Warhammer Online, and other games as well in terms of questing, like Rift, with Rift, which we talked about in the past, and yeah, a bunch of different games in terms of like, there is a lot of originality for Guild Wars 2, obviously, but when you have a genre of game, there is a certain amount of expectations that should be delivered, but I think we can all probably agree that Guild Wars 2 is very unique in very specific ways, i.e. mounts, rage, strikes, combat, PvP, esports scene in the past, etc., etc. But sometimes there are things where we're like, why don't I play as Guild Wars 2 maybe as much? Why do I go and play this MMO for this experience? Why do I go and play this for that? When I could just have this stuff in the game, and we can always question about why things aren't in the game, because, there are many different reasons that we probably don't know about. We can always talk about the things we'd like to see in Guild Wars 2, and that's kind of what this podcast is going to be about. And I wanted to start with, because we've got Halloween coming up very soon. Event wise, and I'm not saying like think about all the events that we've got from other MMOs. You can pick up some ones you really enjoy specifically, but I think there is something about Guild Wars 2 where these events don't tend to change too much, and probably with other MMORPGs as well. That is kind of also the case sometimes. But I just wondered, is there any other events and other MMORPGs that you think maybe Guild Wars 2 could get some influence from, or is Halloween Guild Wars 2 kind of enough? Like, are Guild Wars 2 events fun as well? I don't want to have a massive podcast on just events because we've done that. But like, what events do you like from other MMORPGs that you could kind of bring over or influence Guild Wars 2? And anyone can go with this.
I actually think that Guild Wars 2's in-game events are some of my most favorite and most enjoyable moments in any MMO. However, there are certain events. I know, completely failing the prompt.
This isn't the prompt, it's all.
Failing the prompt, absolutely.
Joking,
but there are certain events in other games that aren't tied to like holidays, but more so just like momentous events to do that offer skins, or it's for a charity or a cause. And I think that would be really enjoyable to see. And sometimes Guild Wars 2 does do it, I think. But those events are also very fun, and just going after like a very particular skin while also raising money for something, or just for the sake of the fun event. I don't know. Some games do that, and I enjoy that as well.
Okay. Is there any particular game that comes to mind?
The very first one is actually Overwatch.
Yeah,
with
exactly. I
their
was thinking exactly
Mercy skin, and
Yes.
how that went to, I believe, the breast cancer research. And so that was a very great initiative and cause.
Cool. Okay. Good stuff. Anyone else?
It's tough because I think, honestly, Guild Wars 2 seasonal events are some of my favorites in most MMOs. I really do love that they have so much that you can do, and that they, over the years add to it. So you can still rerun the old stuff and do all of that, but then, we get sometimes a new feature or new things with it. I also really think they all have a lot of personality. They have good long-term goals to work towards, which are usually things that I really enjoy or look for with seasonal events. I was always incredibly underwhelmed by World of Warcraft seasonal events, because it was just the exact same thing with like nothing new over and over and over again. So you really lose the novelty after the first year or so, But if I were to, I guess, just draw out a couple things, I do think I really like that Final Fantasy XIV for each holiday has some kind of unique little story. So they do a different quest, a little mini quest for each holiday. Sometimes there are like the New Year's holiday or All Saints Wake or things like that, if they back up on a bunch of other holidays where maybe there will just not necessarily be something new, or it might repeat something. But for the most part, the holidays do all have their own little unique seasonal quest that goes with them, and that quest changes every year, and there are like recurring characters, and it's only in the game for the time that it exists in the game, and if you missed it, like, you just have to watch it on YouTube, or rewatch it in your journal or something like that, which carries its own pros and cons, right? But I feel like they could do something like that for a couple of the seasonal events, where they would encourage players to come in and do stuff, even if they didn't add whole new game modes, but they could build on and reinforce some of those seasonal characters and storylines a little bit, which I think would be cool, and just be interesting. And then the other thing I can think of is ESO. So Elder Scrolls Online does something that I love and hate, which is
don't talk about the event tickets to me, if that's what you're talking about.
That's what I was going to talk about, the
don't.
event tickets.
Please don't. They changed it, thankfully, but yeah, go. I will
did they? Okay,
here. I will sit here and cry.
I love and hate this system. So for people who don't know, ESO started doing this thing, and it sounds like have been recent changes to it, which I probably don't know because I haven't played for.
They're not too recent, so
like
you might be. Maybe then. Maybe.
But the idea basically would be that when a seasonal event came up over the course of like the whole year, right, there was a multi-festival incentive. So like you have some kind of unique reward, special effect mount skin, minions, stuff like that is unique to that year's seasons. And for each of the different like seasonal events, you go in, and as you participate in them or you do the different things in them, you get these event tickets, and then you can use those event tickets to buy like pieces of the different event rewards to like merge them together, or to like morph them into, you know, this season's version or this year's version of the Griffin mount or this thing or that thing. And so I love it because it gives the whole year a sense of cohesion, and it gives you something that like, you know, you can work towards, and that's going to be unique for that year. And sometimes they put like really cool stuff in there too, where at the end of the year they'll just like give you a huge house, or they'll give you something else, which like I really, really enjoy. But it was kind of frustrating because if you like come back into the game or you're halfway through the year, you are basically bound to the seasonal events to just try and get as many tickets as you can, which is difficult to do because they have time locks on it. And oftentimes, if there really was a big reward you wanted from that season, you just might be screwed. Like if you can't play nonstop and then get the rest of the stuff to morph the things that you need. So I like that kind of thing. I like each year having those unique rewards and the structures and incentivizing you to come in and participate. But I think there are ways to tweak that formula so that it would be better in Guild Wars 2 as well.
They did tweak it, thankfully. You can actually earn more. I think you can earn more tickets than what you need for each thing now. Also, they changed it. So they're in ESO, it was an Indrik mount, which is just the same thing, right? So it was just a big stag, basically. It looked different. Like it was just, that was the thing. And I was like, why am I doing this? And it was just every single day. Dailies aren't a thing that I enjoy much. And the ESO dailies for this weren't massively enjoyable because there'd be silly things like go kill 5 balls or something, or go and throw some mud balls at someone's face. And it was just like, it was weird. But like for the festival stuff, it's okay. Like, you know, I think that was Christmas actually, so that's coming up soon. Jesus. But like now it's different. You can get like mini pets, and you can get armor pieces, and you can get these different amulet pieces or something like that, which add up to an armor set, which is really quite unique and kind of cool. So yeah, like, it is definitely a good idea, and you can buy those tickets on the store now as well, which I'm not sure I enjoy.
Buy to win. Oh
yeah, it's a bit well, yeah, I mean in terms of like looks wise, yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean the ESO is one of those good examples for that, for having something overarching throughout the year like that. I don't know if any other game does that specifically. I think that is kind of unique to ESO. But yeah, awesome. Okay. Boots, anything from yourself? It doesn't have to be a live game experience as well, because there are like games which kind of just drop events in to single player games.
There's a lot of games that do that, like little weekly things, monthly things. Guild Wars 2 is one of the best at doing it with the things that come around yearly. Also, I kind of think so. I think events, the importance of them are to get people to come together and do things in the same area, do fun things in the same area, basically, for a period of time. And
Totally.
I think Guild Wars 2 kind of they do that very well. And on top of that, some of their Living World, like Season 1, Living Worlds Season 1, was essentially just a bunch of events, one after another.
True.
And we're kind of getting that back now with the Season 1 coming back. And kind of each episode that's coming out is sort of like an event. We're going back to those old maps. Everybody's kind of doing it together again. So yeah, no, I would say Guild Wars 2 kind of has that covered. I think maybe one thing they could borrow, that leads me to one of the points that I wrote down, but I don't know if we're going to talk about it yet.
Wrote down something. We might get prepared. We might get. It's the first time. No one ever has to come prepared, by the way.
It has my points have no relation to your document because I didn't look at your document.
So maybe bring it up when it's relevant then, Boots.
I think it's relevant. So like Temtem is technically an MMORPG.
Yeah, you run around, there are other people. Yeah.
And they do events where, like, in certain locations, certain Pokemon Temtem are easier to find or are finally available in those areas, or like shinies are more likely to spawn here. I think one thing that Guild Wars 2 could possibly have that similar to that, but obviously not the same because there's no such thing as temtems in Guild Wars 2. Is
World of Warcraft had thingy battles, pet battles.
Pet battles.
Yeah. So, and something actually that
Oh.
Guild Wars 1 had is Guild Wars 2 doesn't have like unique mobs out in the open world besides the giant ones that you have for the events that come every 2 hours.
True.
Okay,
So like if you could like have events where, hey, these unique new mobs spawn randomly in certain places, that could be kind of interesting. And I don't know, maybe one time we'll get the ability to capture skills from them, like in Guild Wars.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, capture skills. I mean, yeah. I mean,
Getting rid of elite specs for skill capturing systems. That would be very strange for balance.
Maybe skills that like universal skills, kind of like racials, but
Yeah, even though they're not. Okay,
They
yeah.
could do something like a new mastery tree or something.
Ooh.
But it wouldn't be earned through conventional means. You'd have to like unlock certain ones on
Yes.
it or something, or you could like choose to slot in the abilities that you captured. I think that would be really cool, actually. And I think it would also appease a lot of people that have asked for those like that Guild Wars 1 experience again. Even though it wouldn't be like true multi-classing and all that kind of stuff, it would still give you something, I think.
Yeah, additional.
And to kind of just like touch on this topic of like events, do you remember when they used to do like World Boss Rush and like raid weeks? I feel like they said that that was going to happen again, and it never did.
I think they did 2 world. Did they do 2 World Boss Rush?
I thought that
events?
was going to be a consistent
I thought
thing
it
that
was as
happened
well.
throughout like
I've
the
still got
summer
the,
months.
I've still
And
got
then
the currency for that.
I would love to see those return because like having an event that funnels players into a specific game mode like World versus World, structured PvP, fractals, strikes, raids, whatever. That's very enjoyable. It keeps people
like,
going there.
it's basically the temtem thing. You funnel them into those bosses, funnel them into those areas, and then maybe bump up the rare infusion drop on some of the bosses by 0.001% or something during those times.
Everyone's going to start farming Suwon again.
Yeah.
You know. Okay. I'm gonna push us along to the next thing. I like these suggestions and ideas. I'm gonna dash on. Okay, so this is a good one. I think there's many different there's many different ways that MMORPGs have gathering and crafting and also trading posts in their MMORPGs as well. So like this is one thing that is very, and I've been playing a lot of New World again recently. They've got their new content coming out next week. And you know, the influx of players, you know, as everyone knows, New World started with, you know, close to or just over 1 million concurrent players, and that's 1 million people who have bought the game. That's not free because it's not free to play. So that's one. They sold 1 million copies of that at least. The player base went down to about 14k, which is unfortunate and for very good reasons. And it's now climbed back up to about 50k with the you know, bringing in this new area. They're bringing in new dungeons, Greatsword, and everything else. One thing about New World is that's very unique is the crafting system, and it's probably the best I've ever played, honestly, in terms of just how cool it is to go and gather stuff and how cool the nodes look and just the general interplay between the different crafts and also the gathering systems as well and how that works. And it's just something I've enjoyed a lot. So I was just wondering, in terms of Guild Wars 2, and if you're a brand new player as well and you don't know how kind of gathering works, you gather something that is there for you and you alone. If someone else is coming along and grabbed it, it doesn't matter. You can still grab that thing. You just have to have your roots down. And you know, crafting is pretty easy as well, especially now. Like you can, if you're thinking about crafting, say a ascended piece, like it will just have all of the stuff you need in the actual window, and then you know the tiers down. So if you need like mithril ingots, for example, you can press the little kind of magnifying glass, and you will be able to go down to that level, that tier, and you'll be able to craft the ingot and kind of work your way back up. It's pretty cool and it's pretty easy. It's pretty accessible, I think is the word.
You have that in Guild Wars 2, kind of, in the
No, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Guild Wars 2.
I talking about New Wave.
Sorry, I moved on. But like, so I'm trying to give people like new players maybe an idea of what, if they don't know what crafting is like in Guild Wars 2.
Right.
What other games, like, you know, I mean, Final Fantasy 14 has a pretty cool system. I don't know about end game stuff. I just know when I started, I could put a different outfit on. But like, Boots has got his hand up. So, sure.
Yeah. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but I think I mentioned this before in the past.
Okay.
I think Guild Wars 2 because recently, last week, the Guild Wars 2 wiki went down.
I feel like it's been down for a month.
Yeah, sorry, it's been down for a little while.
Boots, I'm going to ask you an honest question. How relevant is this?
This is very relevant.
Okay,
relevant.
I'm just checking. Just checking.
The Guild Wars 2 wiki went down.
Yeah.
And I was trying to craft stuff. I was trying to find items. I was trying to do crafting and finding item stuff.
Okay.
And I couldn't do it because the wiki wasn't giving me the information that I needed.
Okay.
And there is no option like that. There's nothing in game that tells you where to find things properly, how to put things together properly, especially for the Mystic Forge. And I think Mystic Forge is essentially so I also consider not an MMORPG, but it's a multiplayer game for sure, RPG kind of. Minecraft, modded Minecraft. The Minecraft crafting bench is essentially a Mystic Forge, but more complicated, and nothing is in game in the base game. Now I think they've gotten to the point where you can search for some recipes and like it's more informative of what you could make. Yeah. But when the game first came out, you had to. It was trial and error. It was all trial and error, basically.
Yeah. That's true.
And that's kind of how Guild Wars 2 has been for a very long time.
In the Mystic Forge specifically? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And also just like knowing about items you get. Like you'll get an item and you're not exactly sure what it's used for. You're not exactly sure what it's good for. Like you might accidentally salvage a precursor if you don't know any better. So I feel like in modded Minecraft, there's a mod called Just Enough Items that you hover over an item and you press R and you know what it could be used. What the recipe is to make it. Fine. Yeah. Or if you press U, it tells you what you need to make it. What it could be used in. What it could be used in.
Okay.
So all the recipes that it's used in. I think Guild Wars 2 needs something in game in the UI to give people more information about the items they get and what they can be used in.
Now, hear me out, because I actually think this might dovetail in something I think would be interesting. So like in ESO, for example, you have essentially for all of the different disciplines like a mastery, the equivalent of what would be like a mastery for them. So like of course you actually level up the things by like breaking stuff down, crafting, gathering, all that kind of stuff. But you then also have their equivalent of a sorry, hold on.
We can hear you, Boots, or something, or if you're watching a video.
My voice is echoing through your mic.
Oh, no, okay. Now it's echoing.
Yeah, now it's echoing.
But like, so you can basically do what's the equivalent of sort of like a mastery track for it, where you then like, you might gather more from each node, or you might have a higher chance at crafting something that is like a higher difficulty.
Or the companion kind of, not the companions, but the, what are they called in the ESO?
I mean, it's technically as well, you also then have the actual like champion point system that you can then additionally like put more things into your crafting gathering. Yeah, but it's like discipline training essentially.
I can't remember what the name is.
You train your different weapons and you get skills, but you also through crafting gathering have branches that you can do as well. So why not introduce something that is like a crafting, gathering, mastery that would kind of tie things together, where like part of the reward would be maybe as you like leveled it up or did some unique things for that. Maybe you would even rank it up in a unique way, like through them adding in some kind of crafting gathering delivery hub or something like that, or like a place, a marketplace, or a reconstruction effort where you're contributing to like rebuild this place or something. 14 does that, which is really interesting. So like maybe if you contributed to that and you turned things in, then you could get experience for that mastery track, and the mastery track would culminate in things like what you were talking about, Boots, where you would become like a master crafter or master artisan or something.
So it tells you, like, it gives you more UI when you, that's really cute. I like that.
So like then you would be able to just look at a material and know exactly what it would do because you were a master artisan and you would have an idea of how to use the material.
So the further you level up in this, you can identify things better.
Yeah, you can like identify anything that could be used in, including like Mystic Forge recipes, or you could also like, I mean, they could give it more practical uses in the game itself too, because a lot of people would just be like, well, I can just wiki this, but like,
yeah, they can wiki it, but also a lot of items nowadays, they have been trying to put on the item that you could combine this, and this in the Mystic Forge in order to, But no, I like your idea so much. I want that now.
And it would integrate into like dynamic events where you'd have to go and like help reconstruct the water pipes in Queensdale and have all these fun role play value elements to crafting.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly love that. Like one of the things that I've loved that 14 has started to introduce that actually got me interested in crafting in 14, because I don't particularly care for crafting and gathering in 14, but some people love it and die for it. And I'm like, I totally get it. But it is cool because they do have their own like rotations and skill acquisition and all kinds of stuff. But then they also have, I think, for me, what I find interesting are things like this, right? Like the reconstruction efforts. So they did this whole side plot where they went back and revisited one of the major cities in like one of the expansions that we had been through. And you get like instanced into this little zone. And for the time that it was active, like literally players got to contribute crafting, gathering stuff and like watch as this housing ward was rebuilt. And so like as different servers met different goals and things, it would like build it up. And then, you know, they even had this like leaderboard period where as crafters and gatherers, you could submit a whole bunch of stuff. And then, you know, you would get special titles and all kinds of things for being, you know.
That sounds like an event.
I was about to say, tying crafting into events.
Yeah, that.
They do it with fishing, right? They do it with fishing right now. So they've got like a leaderboard for that. I know it's not the same thing, but it's still.
Wait,
like,
is there a leaderboard for fishing?
Well, it's not a leaderboard.
No, just some events,
it's just an
some
event.
dynamic events.
Yeah.
No, we're talking about like
fishing
seasonal events, Jebro, not dynamic events.
Yeah, geez.
I mean, you could really like, you could do anything on this, right? But it was so cool because you got more lore. You got to essentially, it made it feel like that expansion wasn't just locked in time either, because like, of course, things got destroyed. So what are you going to do after that? You have to rebuild, repair. Like we could do all sorts of things. I think we were on the cast not so long ago talking about, what is it actually called? The beautiful gold Oric Basin. And we were talking about like, how cool would it be now if all the people that were displaced and the survivors from Mordremoth and the different races that live here turned what used to be like a guardian hub into something like a thriving city, you know? And I think that would be so phenomenal if you could see that, and then if they could give you additional reasons for using your crafters and gatherers, right? Like go out, gather all these resources. People are hungry, so you turn in food to a quest giver. People need armor to protect themselves from the jungle's threats, so you craft that stuff and give it in, and there's a higher rating for like more difficult stuff or whatever it is. I think that would be so.
Yeah, that reminds me of the Ellen Keel election a little bit. We contributed by voting. We contributed money, I think, and then we got something for Ellen.
What?
Keel
I did not.
By the way, Ellen
money.
Keel. I just wanted to say.
Is that how Evan Nashblade lost? Because
Well,
I didn't contribute money.
Politics.
I was
about to say super PACs.
I was like, I would have contributed
Speaking of which,
money.
so Ellen Keel got voted in. That was 2013. Right?
The election. When is that coming?
It's overdue.
Okay, well, this is not the podcast for that.
All right.
I'm not much of a crafter, but to just The only thing that I can think of which might tie into the whole crafting discussion is perhaps implementing like a bestiary or a handbook, which might tie into what you were talking about, Boots, in terms of like where to find things, what drops from which mobs, and just, you know, dealing with that stuff. So that was something that they were trying. I believe they were maybe working on that early Guild Wars 2 development. I'm not sure. I could be lying. Probably am. But I think that'd be nice to see.
Just make stuff up. Okay, all right.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anything else specifically. Things that I do really like. I mentioned the essentially kind of mastery track-esque stuff with ESO, but things that I also really liked about ESO was the fact that around the world, so you could find recipes for things, which we can in Guild Wars 2.
Yeah.
But like those recipes could be for all kinds of stuff. I mean, like you could literally go run through a dungeon or steal stuff from people's desks or things like that to try and get furnishing schematics. And I know that in Guild Wars 2 it's a little bit different because Scribe is almost exclusive to furnishing at this point. But like in the future, if they decided to do anything where we do get player housing, like I would really love it if they would put in unique recipes, furnishing recipes for you know, all kinds of stuff that all the different disciplines, not just Scribe. Like maybe there could be things that would be more specific to each discipline, and Scribe would still have really cool, really fancy stuff, so you'd want to level it up or have like magical items and things that could be housing items, or you might need it for whatever reason. But I would love it if they did that, because genuinely, I don't know why, I got obsessed with ESO's crafting gathering system. I really like going around. I really like collecting all the things. I really like cleaning out a place and sticking my hand in every single urn in a dungeon and making everybody wait for me just to see if I can find like, oh, a new furnishing item, or like, oh, this new thing. Because then you can also like craft it.
A lot of people in ESO though really enjoy that. So if you're pugging, normally most people are doing that as well. I'm just like, okay, checking all the parts. But did you, Antiquities then made it worse, maybe, I guess. Did you play with Antiquities in ESO?
I love it with it. I love Antiquities too.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it made it worse. To me, that was really exciting.
No, when I say made it worse, like made it as in like better, like it's do you know what I mean? Like it's like it made it worse, like in terms of like there's even more to find, because that's what I was going to add. Because like Antiquities is kind of like crafted, because you can find recipes and also items that kind of can be crafted, but there's also actual items, like you find things and you put together and you can get like a special mount, and you can find it because you can find this like dwarven leg in like some random spot like after you've done all the digging and all the process in the mini game. And so like there is, yes, I definitely have some stuff which I think is great. I think the unlocking of different stats on gear is a little bit long-winded sometimes. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can basically in ESO to craft specific stats on specific gear, items, weapons, etc. You need to research something. When you first start off, it takes like 20 seconds to research the stat on, say, like, you know, you want strength on a war, like an axe or something. When you get further down the line, we're talking weeks and almost months, like for one stat, because you're really like narrowing down on like the final things you need, and it's kind of annoying. You can get items which, you know, delete that time, but you know it's paid most of the time, and sometimes you get these things for free as well. But it's definitely a cool, like they've got some cool systems for sure. I like in Final Fantasy 14, I like walking around seeing people craft. Like, I just like watching people craft for some reason. Like, someone gets out a little mini desk and they're kneeling down if they're like one of the taller characters, and they've got their little hat on and they're doing their thing. Or like you see the Lalafels and they're standing up because obviously they're short asses. And like they're just like they're pottering around with their little kind of desk and stuff. It's very sweet. But I never like really gathered that much or like had any other interaction. I remember when I first played it when it first came out, and then it died. We got destroyed and then got reborn. I think I did some crafting then, but I don't think I did much since then. Crafting in MMORPGs is very much a hit or miss for me as well, honestly. It's just like, this has to be
usually
really
a miss
engaging.
for me.
Yeah, it's difficult to make crafting without you physically going to do the thing, you feel like it's difficult to translate. It's always going to be difficult to translate that over. But
it's kind of like
I like fishing though. Because
fishing, that's a
there
gathering
is an
thing.
activity, and you're not just waiting for a bar to fill.
Well, yeah, think about gathering as well. So, like, one thing in...
If there were mini games for every gathering node, ooh!
Oh, that would be cool. Well, that would also be a little bit much.
But if the yield increased, like, a lot...
If the yield increased,
like if you did it,
Yeah.
And
got
there'd be a
like
lot
2 or
less
3
teleport
strikes.
farmers.
Absolutely.
Also, I think, well,
Wait,
first of all, we have that...
what did you say, Mitch?
I said there would be a lot less teleport farmers if.
Right, yeah. Well, yeah, maybe.
They'd be out of business.
That's actually a good
hackers,
point. To be fair. They just go from node to node. Well, that's actually a good point. To be fair.
Yeah, but also I'd like to point out. So there is chef events in game for cooking. Remember where you have to go go from table to table, shoot things that if cooking actually, when you crafted things, you had to do that event. That would be hilarious and fun. I think you're right. Crafting, you make a choice, right? When you design a game, you either make crafting about the mats and just the output and make it sort of a economic thing, or you make it a mini game. And I don't know. I feel like the choice is fine, having it just about the mats and the thing. Fishing is a mini game, and that's great. In ESO, I don't know if it's in ESO, but I know in Skyrim at least, lockpicking is a mini game, which is great. But in like World of Warcraft, it's not a mini game. So I don't know. I feel like you could add an additional way to craft that includes a mini game, but I don't know. I think it's too late in the game of Guild Wars 2 to do that.
It'd have to be a new craft, right?
It would have to be a new
craft, or you could do something, because they've shown so much interest recently in collaborative events, right? Or like collaborative facets, right? Our new 2-seater mount, fishing being something that you can do with the skiff as a group, those sorts of things.
Sure.
If we got like this mastery track or whatever else, right? Maybe they could just implement something in that was like collaborative crafting, where you would have some kind of interactive thing that you all do together, and like if you do that, or like like a knitting circle or something, I don't know, you could like get various buffs, or it would like reduce material cost, or I don't know, something that they can do where, like... No. Well, I dabbled at ArcAge, but I didn't get that far in.
ArcAge actually had a pretty cool crafting system at times. So you would do, and it reminds me of that. So what you could do is, so when you went and you would also do land rushing to grab a house, when we're talking about housing layer, but then you could build things like a pier for ships. So you would have to craft ships, like physically craft the ship, and it was there. Like it was this thing that you had to build. It was similar to houses and also other bits and pieces as well. So these structures built over the time, depending on the mats you'd brought over, you'd have to physically walk over like the bricks, the wood, and you would go slower, and you had this pack on your back which changed color and changed design based on what you had. And you would carry the thing over slowly with your guildies, or other people could just randomly drop in and donate to your ship construction, and you would just, like, anyone could do it. Anyone could just pop by and just be like, whoop, here's some wood. Like, do you know what I mean? It was very, very cool. Or destroy it if you're an enemy faction, which just sucks, but it's kind of funny at the same time. But like, it was just really, really cool. Just remember that I made a whole video. It's one of my most popular build videos on my YouTube, how to build a house on ArcAge. And it's like, it was so fun though. It was actually really good, especially as like a guild activity. So I forgot about that.
Warframe kind of has something like that. I mean, we technically do have something like that, sort of, with the guild halls, right? Where if you're trying to upgrade various parts of the guild hall, you can contribute materials. But one of the things that I loved about Warframe's clan halls is that you would have this hall, right? And then you could sit there and lay out every single thing. I mean, you can still do this. I don't know why I'm referring to it in the past tense. You can do it right now in Warframe. You get a clan hall. They're massive. You can keep expanding them. And you can like sit down if you're a designer or you're somebody that likes to create spaces. And you can set every single item. You can create the whole thing. And then if you don't have the materials for it, you just hit like a I don't know, like Solidify design or whatever. And then any other person can walk into that room and then see the like ghost outline of all the stuff that you've made in there, like a scaffold almost. And then they can just walk up and contribute all the maps to it. Or they, I mean, you know, in some other way, you could like do a mini game, or like if you got a group together, you could all try and, you know, build it or something. I mean, I think something like that would be really fun. Even if they wanted to keep expanding Guildhall functionality or customization or things like that. I loved that because I think especially right now in Guild Wars 2 with scribing, it feels so like, it not pigeonholed, but it's just like if I'm sitting there and I want to figure out what I would do to decorate. It's like I want to decorate a space. I can't just like sit down and decorate a whole bunch of stuff. I have to like go beg somebody to make me. Can you please make me a chair? Can you please make me another chair? Can you please make me this one doodly did? Like so it's just like
but once you've made those things, they get stored in the guild hall decorations, right?
I believe if they put it in there. I believe,
In other games, like Boots, I don't know if you've done like furniture. I know what you're talking about, though. Like in ESO, for example, you can just get a chair. You find a chair, you can put that chair in a flipping thing. You don't have to craft the chair.
Or at least be able to buy it off the auction house.
Yeah, like there's more options available. Like Scribe feels really limited. Like when we started talking about Scribe in chat, for example, everyone was like X, not X, and it was just like sad faced and like, no, not Scribe. And I know Reader Geek, who's one of our awesome mods, is just like, you know, level this thing up, and just how much of a pain in the ass it is. And I'm just like, I don't want to do this. I don't even want to touch that thing.
I also think that the scribing profession, crafting job it's great for decoration, but I also would love to see additions to it. Like you could craft and build training dummies that are like enemies, and like the golems that we see on the dev team, they will like position golems.
I thought you want to see the dev team.
No. I love the dev team. But when they do their streams, they have a bunch of golems set up, and like enemy golems, ally golems, different structures, and that could even play into racial training dummies, where like the Asura craft the golems, the humans craft like the stick and straw dummies, and you could actually set it up in your guild hall and have a place to actually train players.
ESO does this as well.
I love that. And like so Rift would do it as well. Yeah, and I love the decorative part of it, but I always try to think of how could this also implement in combat and help teach people like gameplay and get them into those spaces.
Healing dummies,
so that's
where
I would love to see, and like defiance bar dummies and dummies where you like practice different dodging patterns and whatever. I think that would be that'd be really cool to see expand the scribing.
That's kind of like the classic guild halls, like Rift. I remember, like you just described, was a place where they definitely had dummies in there. I think they had it in World of Warcraft when they had the whatever hall thing they had in there. I can't remember what it's called. They got rid of it in the end, didn't they? ESO does it as well. You can get those dropped and you can just plant them wherever you want, and you could I don't think you could craft them though. I think they were drops or you bought them.
It's a shame that scribes can't really sell their finished products on the.
That seems silly to me. I still don't get that.
That is
actually,
weird.
Honestly, I don't know why.
Like they let us sell so many other things in this game, and if you're gonna go
legendaries,
like
but you can't purchase a chair.
More legendary. That's why, Criff. Okay. The Farnish chair from Varby is the very prized possession
honestly,
of the legendary Guild Wars 2
To be fair, when we were discussing Heart of Thorns before it came out on Tea Time, and when raiding was just being discussed, what could we possibly get as rewards in raiding? What's going on?
Chairs.
And this was before legendary armor was a thing or announced, I believe. Right. And so we were like, it's got to be decorations for the new coming guild hall, right? Like we're gonna get, or we desperately need that carpet, so we're gonna have to raid this, whatever. And
that's amazing, you know.
Exactly. So like I feel like
that torture device after you kill Deimos, I really need that in my room. We gotta go kill Deimos now.
Exactly.
On CM mode.
So in the end, you do get decorations from raiding, but it's like someone's skull, and who really cares about that? And a chair.
That is one thing that I think they like, whether or not they even add housing into the game. They keep adding guild halls. So I wish that they would add and make furnishing more accessible. Like this is a huge thing. Decorating places, decorating guild halls, whether or not you have individual housing, that's a massive facet of many MMOs right now. It even has entire like sections of communities that are strictly devoted to things like that. We see these incredible original creators like HG14, an entire network of different creators, communities, all sorts of things that do housing in Final Fantasy XIV. You see the same thing with all of the huge housing people in ESO. It is a whole other facet to draw in an audience. When you think about games like The Sims, when you think about games, you know, that allow you, Animal Crossing, that allow you to have and customize a space, that's not only something that is fun and adds more longevity for content, open world, crafting, gathering stuff, but it's also something that allows personal expression, and it's something that's very visible. Because if somebody wants to customize something, what do they then want to usually do with it? Typically they want to show it to other people. And so you start seeing all kinds of screenshots and all kinds of, you know, custom builds and all sorts of things floating around that catch people's eye because they're proud of what they made and they want to show it. So I would just love it if they made scribing easier, if they made it so you could sell all your stuff. And even if they wanted to do something like with Final Fantasy XIV, some of the raid equivalent endgame PvE bosses, particularly the extreme primals, they drop rare, there's like a rare percentage crafting mat drop on many of them that you can then use for unique, specific to them furnishing items or you know, things like that. So again, you can add all these incentives in. You can add, just like an ESO where you're walking around and you literally find furniture in certain maps that's themed around that map or that place or that thing or whatever, or that style of race. And then you can just put it in your house. But I think that also incentivizing some of these things like, you know, rare scribe stuff that then can be made and sold, or running other content that now gives you crafting mats or specific furnishing items for that, is a huge gold mine stuff that they just have not actually done anything with in Guild Wars 2. So I would love to see that because I think they already have so many assets in the game that they could just use as like furnishing items. And of course you'd have to adapt it. You'd have to, you know, they're not made to be furnishing items, but when you have all those assets, I mean, we see in 14 all the time that they're just like, oh, what, you like this wall in this place? Cool, well now you can have the wall. Do you you like that one chair in this like area? Well, cool, now you can have that chair, because they're just making use of stuff they've already had to 3D model, you know? So
like in End of Dragons, I think there were only 2 decorations that were added. It was like the dragon head and like a tile set, but there's so much else in End of Dragons that would be really cool to see.
You could buy racing track stuff with the stuff you get from racing, for those little racing tokens. If you could sell those on the trading post as well and incentivize people to do more racing, yes.
You'd be very rich.
I'd be so rich.
Okay, I'm going to push this forward because we're actually going to come back to housing next week, later, because it's not a thing in Guild Wars 2 right now, and we've gone from crafting over to housing, which was a logical path, but that's going to be the kind of second half or whatever later. But yes, very good points, everyone. Mounts in Guild Wars 2. Is there anything other games which could teach Guild Wars 2 about mounts, or it doesn't necessarily have to be mechanical,
game, right?
Well, it doesn't. Yes. Did you actually read the document? Because it's there, and I'm like, it is there. That was one thing. It was like think additional, i.e., unlocks in game ? So I'm like, wow. Maybe that's why Boost doesn't actually like.
Was a real prompt then.
It was real. It exists.
Yeah. And it was the only answer to the question.
It is the only answer. Because Guild Wars 2 had the best mounts in the RPG. And I will fight people for that. Like,
there's not really anything that I would change about mounts, you know, or that I think other games, if anything, I think most games need to learn from Guild Wars 2 how to do mount design. Really, the only thing is the fact that mount skins and cosmetics are exclusive to the cash shop. And it doesn't feel good in a game that otherwise is so considerate of players' wallets and things like that. I had somebody just literally, I think this past week, that was on stream talking about Guild Wars 2 for the first time, and they were so excited about the mounts that I was on. And they were asking me about, like, where do I get that? And can I get like skins? And and I had to say, you can only get skins in the cash shop. And that is not a good, it never, ever is a good thing to have to say to somebody. It's not a big selling point, and it, if anything, I think makes people get a bad impression before they even realize how much the game has to offer them.
Yeah. There's a lot of clips of like big streamers coming over to Guild Wars 2 to try out a few times and being, like when you're in the low starter zones and then there's a bunch of people swarming around them with all their fancy shit. And so then like they'll be like,
yeah,
oh
we all
wow,
call
look
it
at
fancy
that
shit.
look at that awesome looking mount. I guess you got to beat something really impressive to get that fancy looking mount, right?
You gotta beat capitalism.
You've got to beat poverty.
And then they slowly learn that every single fancy looking thing, mount wise at least, is in the gem store. Yeah,
it's a problem.
Yeah, like the death, like the sky scale that's kind of like death and has like that necrotic aura. I'm like, oh, that of course would translate to like you have to kill Doom to get
no.
Like, oh.
Now there will be the argument. There will be the classic argument of you can earn that by paying gold for it.
Gems,
and it's like,
gold is gems.
Oh yeah, that is technically true, but that is time, and how much time is that? And are you your family gonna starve?
Especially since the mount skins are like, some of the really nice ones are what, 2,000 gems? And hold on a second, gem to gold is like, what is it?
And to get a possible random drop where you might just get a re-skin, where it's just like you get multiple dye channels, that's 400 gems.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 400.
And it's not even a different design.
The thing is that you don't have to, like, it just kills me because I'm like, you don't have to do this to still get people to buy your mount skins. People will literally always buy mount skins. They don't care. Like, they will always buy the new shiny mount skin in any MMO that I play. People go buck wild over mount skins. It just doesn't matter if it has a special effect, if it's whatever. People will buy it, even if they can earn 500 mount skins in game. So to me, it just feels so unnecessary and redundant. And there are so many skins where I'm just going, why wasn't this just a reward?
Just one of each mount. That's all we need. One earnable in-game, unique
honestly. That has like a rare drop rate, a semi-rare-ish drop rate.
Well, what games do it?
Not as like an infusion,
what games drop mounts and what do you have to do to get? I know, but like
Ashes of Alar.
Wait, what?
Final Fantasy.
World of Warcraft.
Oh, okay.
I mean, almost every other MMO. I mean, maybe when even ESO does it.
No, yeah, they absolutely do. Yeah.
I mean, every single other MMO I can think of, you get mount skins in the game, and they still have an Avid mount skin cash shop.
What is the problem is then that the examples that we're given are all sub games, right? That's the only difference. I'm trying to think of.
You got different mount skins.
Rift was a sub game though for a long time.
Terra, I believe you got.
Okay, I'm just trying. I'm not saying like anyone's wrong or anything. I'm just kind of saying
what non-sub games.
What non-sub games? Yeah.
Destiny 2, you do get skins. You get them for your little racer motorcycle.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. For sure.
So you do get skins. Sometimes just from the content, but also from doing their like free season pass thing that they've got now.
Yeah.
And that is no sub technically. Warframe.
Warframe. Yeah, true.
You don't have mounts in Warframe.
No,
you have frames though.
You have frames.
I know it's not skin, but
you could earn some in game.
Yeah, I'm trying to think through. They did add in things like you've got like your little ships and stuff, and you have your like customizable little ship that you're in. So I do think you can get skins for it. It might be a little bit more restrictive, but again, their market is also so free and so open that people trade a lot of the stuff that even you can buy for cash just freely and avidly for in-game currency. Yeah, like there's like cosmetics for your lander kind of thing.
And I wouldn't expect Guild Wars 2 to be at that level of certain sub games where you have so many choices.
Yeah.
But currently we don't have any
Nothing.
choices.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of stings. And I kind of agree with Boots, is like, if there was at least like one earnable mount skin per mount,
There should be one per
that
mode
was kind
at
of
the very
shiny.
least. Yeah.
Something like that. It's like
Makes sense.
Oh,
we're
you
at
don't
that
need
point
one
where we're kind of
PvP.
just like, anything.
People who do it though. That's what
Well, one
people who go
earnable
into
skin in
PvP.
World versus World for the World versus World mount, and then the other ones,
Which you
in
can.
PvE.
That's the only skin that you can get in game, is the Warclaw skin.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to see at least one, yes, but I mean, honestly, I think they just need to start adding it directly into their reward structure, because it's very strange that you can't get those. And yet we see them still developing them. And we see, I mean, we think about how many mount skins we've seen since End of Dragons came out that have been in the cash shop. So there's obviously time dedicated to designing them and creating them. And when we're looking at some of this content that we're kind of going like, well, are people going to keep running this, or are they going to do this, or are the rewards good enough for it, or, you know, does anybody even do this meta event or this side event or this anything event, right? You put mount skins behind those. You do something like you put like a special unique siege turtle skin behind a series of different events in End of Dragons that would also include that one Fort Aspenwood, like Fort Aspenwood, right? Because you use siege turtles in that assault. So like add different things into it where you know, if you run that content or you run other stuff, you get you know, X amount of times or whatever it is, because people will do it, you unlock a skin. I really think that it's very strange that they don't have rewards on them. And I mean, other than that, there's not really much for Guild Wars 2 to take away when it comes to mount systems, because I think they do such a good job with them. If anything, I just hope they continue to develop content for the mounts. You know, we get more jackal puzzles, or we get even the ability to put like jackal portals around your guild hall, or those sorts of things, because I love the roller beetle racetracks. I love the griffin race stuff. I love all that kind of content. I also really love when they do little quests with the mounts and mount acquisition, like the griffin one. So, I mean, there's a lot of things they could do with mounts in the game.
I have one. This is so personal, but I'm not a huge fan of the power of certain engage skills on the mount. Like the raptor, it's like a 10 target pull, and everyone, it just feels like it doesn't like respect the enemy NPCs, and that's such a weird thing to say, but it like kind of just trivializes certain.
They're not real.
They do so. I know, but I like.
So
I kind of
kind,
have
bless
fond
you.
memories of before we had these really and I know they weren't supposed to be combat tools, but they ended up being very strong combat tools. So I don't know. I would like to maybe see those kind of nerfed in the amount of CC.
You don't have to use it, Cruz.
What about the siege turtle?
But it's not about me using it. It's about the 5 other people using it, because everyone just does a tailspin and kills everything.
You should just get a map chat and just be like, if I see you using
I
your map,
know, and it's such a very
ban you from the
specific
game.
thing that, but it's just like every time that happens, like certain events where you have to go between mobs, it's like they just die within like 1 second. I'm like, oh, it's not as fun as I would have liked.
That's okay.
But...
You're allowed to have your opinion. Next, we're going to.
And it is wrong.
It's not wrong. It's your opinion.
It is.
Your opinion is your opinion. It's not wrong. Okay, Dungeon Fractals. Things that other MMORPG, we're not getting down this list very quickly. The next one might have to just be the next show. The Dungeons and Fractals, other MMORPGs, what they do, what we can borrow from them. I've probably talked about LFG way too much in every single episode we've ever done. So LFG, I will just say, yes, probably in some shape or form, for me personally, would be a cool thing to add. What else?
And I am not going to talk about the LFG, because we all know our positions about that. But I view Fractals as Guild Wars 2's hard mode / mythic / endgame dungeons. And one thing that I would pull from other games that have the hard dungeon systems is to not have such a grindy requirement of agony resistance per character.
Okay.
I find that system of agony resistance is the one thing that keeps me from really enjoying Fractals. I have 30 characters. I love so many professions, and specifically, I love so many elite specializations. But if you don't have like full legendary gear and you don't have the amount of agony resistance to level each one of those characters up, it is such a taxing grind. And I really would love if it was perhaps like account bound, or if it was just totally gotten rid of, so there isn't that like super grindy gate, and for the actual process to maybe be a little less painful. But that's the one issue I have.
It does feel a little
Fractals.
archaic right now in the game.
Yeah, why not just like put it into a mastery line or something?
And there is a fractal mastery line.
There is. Why not like expand
Yes.
it, or like add a second part or something where, like you said, you work towards it and you get it, or you acquire, or whatever they would want to do with that. But then it is just like a passive account-wide thing that applies to all characters that you then have, so that you can bring stuff in. And now I don't know if that would mean that it would like
Crash
open
the
up an
economy.
additional slot.
Yeah.
Like, well, I don't know. Like maybe it would be something where rather than it having to be bound to specific types of gear or something, it's just that like per character, kind of like how you slot in the Jade bot per character with its adaptations, maybe then you would just have a different thing that you slotted agony resistant
Are you
to.
talking about
So you could
account
still,
bound?
like,
Account bound agony resistance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that you could still like, I mean, it could still be per character in a sense, but again, it wouldn't be something where you're having to like, I don't know, get all this like incredibly high level gear and do all this stuff and do, just something that
But I
would
guess it
be
also does. The secondary effect of making people have agony resistance gives you the knowledge that those people who are in those high level fractals with you at least have ascended gear as well.
You don't need
so
ascended
like,
gear for it.
so there, you don't need it, but at the same
only
time,
reason you
the
need
people
it is
who
for
got the
things.
ascended gear probably are advanced enough in the game to know the mechanics of this high level fractal
I should
stuff.
just make
But
it
if you
like,
were to get the agony resistance on your account, that means that you have at least encountered the mechanics anyways. So
Yeah.
you're somewhat knowledgeable about it.
True.
And you only need ascended because of that AR.
So are you saying, so what I heard was the systems are shit, basically. Like it is not.
It's like I want to play
It's just so bad. It
harder
is.
endgame
Sorry.
5-player content, but you just
It's an
you
effort.
can't.
Yeah,
You can't
absolutely.
do it.
Like I said to like I've worked with like in our stream, for example, there aren't many people that have done fractals. Like they because of that very reason. Like they say that I've got to get from level 1 to 100. I don't necessarily. But well, how do I do it? Like I have to get the infusions.
Grind.
Like what gear do I get? I have to do this, and it's like, well, I don't have time to grind. But like if you do
can-
mythic,
so you can-
if you do mythic dungeons in World of Warcraft, you don't have to like grind that hard. Like in Guild Wars 2, it's like it feels like it's just. But the thing, it gates the experience. It locks people off from experience, which can keep them busy in the game and keep them in the game rather than saying, you know what, I can just go and play the dungeon I want to play in Final Fantasy 14 or ESO because I've got this power rating that I just need. I've got 160 champ points. I can go and do this thing. Like that's pretty easy to do. Whereas in Guild Wars 2, you need to get each ascended piece of gear. Then you need to get the infusions to make sure you don't get hurt that much when you're playing a dungeon.
it's only for higher level. I mean,
Yeah,
there
well,
is
of course, yeah.
There's a baseline of this content that anybody can do. I mean, you can come in as long as it's unlocked to you, and you can just go in and start running fractals. So I don't mind the fact that there is like a progressive system you need to work your way up through, and that when we have these higher level ones and the other things that go with that is end game, right? There's a difference between just
Kind
like
of,
general
yeah.
content and something that falls more into an end game challenge zone, right?
But shouldn't it be like difficulty rather than just these pieces of gear you have to
But
kind
it
of
is.
pick
No,
up?
but it
It seems gating to me because
It's
well, this
so
is the
tough,
experience that I've
because
had
it
from
was in-
others, though.
it was introduced to the game to be the end game of Guild Wars 2 when it was first it came in, right?
just
Like
not
it was the end game, so of course it's grindy. I think you're right though that it is.
It's not
possibly
grinding for
too
the right
grindy.
reasons, though.
It's possibly too grindy just in that every single one of your characters needs all the agony assistance in order to do
Yeah.
it. But that's just money in the end, right? Like you could, that's just gold. That's not. You don't have to continuously do the fractals on all your characters because you get the access to them on all your characters.
I guess I suppose so. I think it's the system of generally like having to switch things around as well. Like you can't just easily play another class. You have
That's
to like
one of the
have-
reasons people get legendary armor too, right?
Yeah, but then you have to still have like.
You still have to have the separate agony because the agony
guess
isn't
so.
shared.
Yeah.
So it does come down to money, but it's like I'm not going to dedicate all of my playtime and all of my earnings to purchasing agony
more than one
resistant.
character ready for
Yeah.
And I think it is important to acknowledge what it is as a style of content, right? Because, I mean, like you were saying, Jebro, I don't necessarily think that all content that falls into the realm of something like Endgame has to be purely difficult in the sense of like, it's really mechanically heavy and it has this huge drastic difference between the normal mode and stuff like that. I do think a lot of games have found a lot of success with something that is more of a repeatable copy pasta kind of, where it's like, I'm trying to think of how to explain this. We have like in Final Fantasy 14 these things called deep dungeons, which are just like randomly generated dungeons. There was also something released similarly in World of Warcraft, the tower thing.
That's
so
wicked.
it's like this idea that as you go through each level, it is not necessarily a really technically difficult thing.
Yeah.
It's just that like the mob composition can change. There's an unexpected RNG element. You have to kind of learn and work your way through, and things hit harder as you get to different levels. So again, they're adding almost modifiers on to what just already exists.
Yep.
And that's sort of like what happens with higher level Fractals or the special stuff with Fractals, which I don't mind at all. But you don't want that content to be incredibly difficult or arduous to like gear up for, do, run, especially when you have introduced other more technically challenging endgame content in the forms of raids and strikes, which is where I think that kind of stuff gets to shine. So I think at this point, for me, with Fractals, when we're looking at them lumped in with dungeons, right? I honestly think if it is going to be more of a copy-paste sort of content that has scaling difficulty to pad out experience and time and rewards and things for players, then genuinely, and especially because we aren't getting raids, the biggest thing that I would extrapolate from other MMOs would just be the pacing of release on these. I think we need more of them. Final Fantasy 14 does one dungeon with every major patch. They used to do two. They've gone down in that, which I was a little sad about personally. But they have at least one that gets added into the roster.
How often is that?
Every 3 months ish.
Okay. Yeah,
Must be nice.
I mean, I was going to say that's a lot.
Yeah, I just feel like for me, even if they were just introducing new baseline fractals, which is like our dungeon content, again, tie them into the story, do whatever, make it so that you're re-experiencing them in the mists or whatever they want to do to like justify that. But I think we do need more PvE content. It needs to be more consistent. And with something like Fractals, I'm fine if they want to like retire or move out that AR into more of like a mastery or something, and then make this a little bit more of just a content between other content, but that does have a scaling difficulty for people to do and pass their time with, if that makes sense.
I think for me, it's the accessibility of it that kind of annoys me, honestly. I think from because I think about accessibility a lot. I think it's just because of my what I'm doing as work as well, because always accessibility is always thinking about how can people get into therapy, how can people get into buildings, how can people get into all this stuff. And you just think, I know, that's weird, two extremes. But like, in terms of that, the complaints that I hear are like, it's annoying to get the things when it's not really skill. It's just more of a unlock. And I know other MMORPGs have it, like Destiny has it, and that's part of the fun, and that's what MMORPGs are like. It's a grind. But I think, to join your friends in something, it's they're going to have to go and do that kind of on their own, or they're going to have to pull them down, and there's those feelings that are involved with that. So I think I like the idea of the account bound. I'm not saying people shouldn't grind for it, but like I like the idea of like having an account bound system where you have an AR rating that you grind up, like a PvP ranking, for example, and it just goes up like it's a level, right? Because people would do it like it was a mastery, obviously. Wow. You spoke about this earlier. I think I was off the headphones, but like it could be just something which you kind of level up, which all your characters could access. You could switch in, switch out, whatever you want, just have fun and just be like, you know what? I want to run a heal thief. Let's do that and have some fun. He's got the AR, I can just pull that thing in. Because at the end of the day, the more accessibility you give to people, the more busy your game is going to be in different areas. It doesn't mean you have to dilute the difficulty. Yeah. Like it's like you can putting that population into different places. Sorry, Griff. It is like it's something I would love to see them do, rather than just sometimes I feel like Fractals is another one of those pieces of content. I'm sorry to get on my whole horse about this. that they kind of just left alone, and they just were just like, "Hi, there we go."
About that, but I'll wait until Proof goes.
But like DRMs, it's like everything, you know. Like DRMs, just completely forgot about that. I didn't even put them on the list because I was just like, well, that's a thing, you know. But like, it's still an instance, and it's almost, you could almost count it as a dungeon technically. But like,
well, if it was integrated into the dungeon system, I would call it a dungeon, but it's not.
Yeah. Thank you. But like,
Anyway.
yeah, go Criv. Sorry.
What I wanted to briefly mention, because
otherwise.
I do respect the discussion about accessibility.
Yeah.
But with the way that Guild Wars 2 works is that the LFG, you kind of take a person at their word, and AR is
That's
a
true.
method to showcase that the person does have the gear. And
Yeah, that's
Acme
true.
Resistance is just like, it's so unique and it just feels like so unnecessary that
It does.
I wouldn't
Seems to me.
mind if we actually had gear score, because it doesn't mean that they're going to actually create a gear treadmill. But if exotic gear, if ascended gear had a certain like number attached to it where
Yeah.
it would be character bound. So if your character was properly geared for that level of fractals, that level of raids or strike missions, however they want to like integrate it, I would be more comfortable with like a gear score rather than something that is like, you get the gear, but then you also have to get something else
Yeah, I like
attached
that.
to it.
Yeah, because gear score is something that happens in, there's like New World,
And very
there's
universal to the
Destiny 2.
MMO
Yeah.
experience.
Oh, yeah.
And you could, I mean, you could even tie that into if they did a theoretical AR mastery, right? Where maybe there would be,
Yeah.
like, you would have to be at a certain tier to be able to, you know, you can access now fractals X above because you have that passive buff. Or like maybe you need to have completed a fractal at whatever level and then gotten enough, like you get the experience by completing it or something at that level, and then you can move on to the next one. I think they could do something like that. I also would just love thinking, like circling back a few steps to what you said at the start, Kurv. I would love if they just took those stupid DRMs and made them fractals. Like this is the thing that drives me nuts. I'm just like,
Why did they even have another kind of instance? Like, it just wasn't
why
necessary.
even make something like this? Like, you already have this system,
weird.
you already have this hub. And the way that they are made, sure, they're maybe a little bit more freeform. They're less linear in the sense that like it's a bigger open map
Just
zone
the
kind of
zone,
thing.
Yeah, they're not really balanced.
Yeah.
In a good way.
I know.
It would need some balance tuning.
But I mean that's my explanation as to why they're not fractals, because they
I
just
mean-
kind of put it there as a thing that they don't have to think about
Yeah.
anymore, really.
But I would just prefer that even at this point, even if they can't, for whatever reason, make new fractals right now, to convert those into something like fractals.
Yeah.
And just,
Yeah.
you know.
So I give us like 4 new fractals or something. Like actually more than 4. How many DRMs do we get? I don't even know.
Yeah.
Too many.
We got a lot.
They would have to finesse them, and they would have to rebalance them, right? Like it's not like they could just plonk them
Yeah.
directly in, but they already have the whole structure of the instance. They already have the characters, the voicing, the lines, the dialogue, the enemies. Like redo them, reparcel them, repackage them, add them into something like the Fractal Hub to re-experience them. Like
Yeah.
to me, it's just like right now they sit there and there's such a weird piece of content, and they are required for many players to get through the story. And
They're
I know
required
so
for the
many
legendary,
people,
for the free
and for
legendary
the
as well.
legendary. And it's just like so many people. I know so many new players that get to them, and then I suddenly see messages in our Discord going,
Yeah.
I don't understand what this is, and it's really hard, and I can't like
What
and,
is
It
this?
is hard.
and
Oh, the
like,
reason it's
well, yeah.
hard is because you got to do it on your own. Like no one else has gone
They're,
for doing it.
they're able
That's
to
the
be
problem,
done,
yeah.
but they just take longer. It feels like it takes
Yeah.
longer if you're by
I
yourself.
don't think it actually does
takes-
take longer.
It does. It takes
A little bit, a little bit longer.
Boots your boots, okay?
went-
Just
I literally only did it solo the whole
delete,
time.
we'll
I
delete
know,
you from the
I know.
game. But if
I
we
did it
delete
solo
you from the
too,
game-
and I did it with a party, and I found more. It felt quicker when I was in a party because just like mobs die more
It's
fast.
definitely quicker. Yeah.
And there's like a weird spot where I went in with 2 players because I was trying to help somebody, and it was never ending. This was one of the harder later ones too, but like it was never ending. And I was just going, maybe it would have been better doing this alone, or if we'd had like a big group or something, because it was just so awkward.
It's
And
probably
I've
a
had-
weird scaling thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
like I've had multiple people tell me that they stopped playing the Icebird Saga the first time because of those DRMs, and they have it on their list where they're just like, oh, I need to do the DRMs, but I still haven't done them. And Not even because they've heard that the community doesn't like them, just because they got into it and they found it really clunky to do, either because they were a new player, a returning player, or whatever. So to me, I don't know why they introduced them as opposed to just building on existing systems that they have in the game.
I had my share of bashing DRMs, but I'm going to push us forward a little bit because
Boots, he had a question.
I know, but I'm just wondering.
I've been saving up all the things.
Make it quick.
We're talking about other MMORPGs and we're not complaining
Summarize
about
it,
DRMs.
Boots. You can do it in a minute.
I'm just to blame with this. If you're good, like, go on.
Okay.
The chat has spoken.
So going back to what we were talking about before when I wanted to talk about things. I think an account-wide what's it called? AR would be great. I think that it would cause a lot of issues because there's a lot of money tied to the current infusions and how everything works currently. So it wouldn't be an easy switch is one thing. The other thing is, so for Dungeons and Fractals, gear score is an interesting thing to talk about. I don't know if it's like in the philosophy of ArenaNet to implement it right now for the community, because I don't know if the community can really deal with being judged on gear score at the moment. I think though that is one thing that Guild Wars 2 can hopefully take from at some point in the future from other MMOs, is that looking for group system that is easier. It's not the old school version that is more. You could get paired up more automatically.
Yeah. Not even automatically, but in a way which is like
and
more
intuitive.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the problem. It doesn't have to be just like 5 people. You can be like, I want a slot for X, Y, Z. Like you need to have the specifics. It doesn't have to be automatic.
It'll be very difficult to. It won't be that. That won't be that difficult to implement. No. But it
New World does it, and it does it very well.
Doing automatically would be difficult to implement. But anyway, another thing you guys mentioned was that you feel if Fractals is kind of left behind content.
Yes.
I don't feel that way.
When was the last Fractal?
I know the timeline.
I see what you're saying, Boots.
I think that DRMs, that's a very good point. They could have been the storyline of the DRMs could have been in. Well, no, not exactly. Okay, so my idea is this. Okay. Right now, the way the thing is set up is strikes are very defined. They are the storyline that we're currently in being translated into strike missions, 10-man. There you go.
Okay.
Fractals has always been raids are things that are happening in our current storyline but aren't our character doing them, right?
I mean they are, but you're not the separate story.
We're not the focal.
We're not the focal point, but we're still
side
the commander.
Stories but happening in our current story in our current timeline. Yes. Fractals has always been a grab bag, a wide open canvas that they could do anything in because it's all over the timeline. You can be in the
it's
future,
real, it's
in
not
the past,
real, exactly.
no matter what. So I always felt that they would come back to Fractals whenever they had a story that they wanted to tell that isn't in our current timeline. And I feel like it's okay to have Fractals reserved for that.
I'm not going to say anything else because otherwise I can continue the point. So cool. I have other thoughts, but I like your thought on that. That makes sense, because it is a very ingenious way of wanting to tell a story within your game that just doesn't fit. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Exactly. And whether it's a longer story or a shorter story, they've told longer stories before in the Fractals, and that was the final story arc with what's his name and the lady.
What's his name and John's your old uncle flipper kneecap time.
So they don't have to do like one-offs every time. They can do an arc even. But I feel like that might happen when they have stories they want to tell. And I don't know if they have.
Well,
that right now,
it's like you're looking at the document or something, because next subject is story and questing. What other games do that Guild Wars 2 could maybe learn from? As long as you finished your point and what you wanted to talk about. Yes.
Story arc.
Story and questing.
Did you have anything else you wanted to say? I didn't want to be rude.
No, that's
do you
fine.
have anything else you
I
wanted to
get
put? Okay. Well, story. Hey, I was being nice there, Creef. Don't laugh at me.
I'm not laughing at you.
We just have less time nowadays, so I'm like trying to
No,
make
I
sure.
get it. Let's keep it pushing. Let's keep the car
I'm
pushing.
trying to respect your time. That's all.
It's all right. Story questing. We've talked about this a ton on the podcast before.
Yes.
Guild Wars 2 has fantastic narrative. One thing that I think that we see in other games, though, is something more like a robust side quest system. That there are specific side quests that are designated as side quests that enhance the world, lore, etc. We have these in a sense in Guild Wars 2, but they are oftentimes hidden in the achievements. Sometimes as well, it may be something where you can't even get that collection unless a specific event pops and then the NPC is there, or a specific thing happens, right? And then you see the little collection marker. So to me, I would love it if they did a side quest journal, and that just like we have our story panel, if they would move all of those that even had cutscenes and major character beats and like the stuff with Jory and everything and End of Dragons and all. There are some great little side narratives. So I'd love to see them do what many other games have done, which is to expand out the supplementary directed questing, not just open world immersion, but directed questing that would give you these little additional pocket narratives, or that at specific key points would give you something a little bit different in the formula rather than just like do main quest. Main quest tells you to explore map. I would love it if instead we had some sections like in New Kaining City, for example, where we had gotten a small collection of side quests at that point to go around to different districts, hear about different people, learn more about Yao, do different things like that.
Yes.
So for me, I think that's the big thing. Many other MMOs have a lot of other supplementary types of quests. In 14, for example, we even have like a comedic side quest that unlocks content called the Hildebrand quests, which there's a lot to discuss in them as well, but they're meant to just be funny and silly, and they are just purely comedic. But then we also have a bunch of other like side quests and ongoing side quest series that document different characters or have some kind of other content. And we also get that side quest content as well in conjunction with things like the Trials series, or which are like strike missions essentially, but there's almost always like 8-man raids that come out that have their own narrative and quest, 24-man raids that come out that have their own content, narrative, and quests, and then also a bonus trial series. So like a bonus series of usually 3 bosses that have their own story, quest, and side quest. So Guild Wars 2 has a plethora of incredible narrative and so much to discover in this game. But I would love it if they would give us a bit more directed narrative questing. Even stuff like when I think about, ESO, they have done some fun stuff with some of the collections and things at the end that, I mean, almost do have their own narratives where you're like going around and learning more about the zones and completing a bunch of content or events and stuff like that. So even if they wanted to do something a little bit like that, where it was more abstract, but you were getting this item from, you know, this thing or this event, and then it coming together, you got this whole other little narrative and stuff to really get you to explore all the maps, I'd be fine with that too. But I just think we need a little more structure in some of those.
The story in ESO is for me the perfect. They've got their story. I'm not saying I necessarily want it exactly this way, but ESO is just like, I know it's Skyrim. Okay, I know they've got the writers, they've got the music, they've got the you know, all the things. But that's the big benefit. They got the money, right? But like the story is so, like you say, structured. In every single zone, there is a zone story that you work your way around, which is kind of like World of Warcraft, and I think I'm not sure about Final Fantasy because I've not played that far through it. But in ESO, it's awesome. And you just learn the character, like they really flesh the characters out. There are side quests that you kind of can pop along to. If you go and investigate like a public dungeon, there'll be a quest giver outside, normally every single time. And it'll be just a fun little side quest where you get a little item that might help you on your way, you know, or it'll be shit. That's just sometimes, that's most of the work, most of the time. You don't do questing to earn money. So you just don't. There'll be some random number like 62 gold, and then you'll be like, oh yeah, 62 gold is like 62 copper in Guild Wars 2, and even less.
I think the closest we got in Guild Wars 2 to questing, I mean, Collections tries to do it, I guess, but the closest we really got to it was after Heart of Thorns, with the NPC that appears in the Grove and has you reforge Khalidbolg.
Yes, those side stories.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I agree with Rook wholeheartedly that the side stories being in the achievement tab is very strange. I would love to see the journal tab expanded, where like at the top you have like main story and then side stories, and then you click on side stories and you can see the whole layout of those side stories that you can go in and participate in. But there have been actually, even recently, they've started to do this, and I think they began doing this in season 4 in the Sunspear hideout, where there are markers above people's heads with like 2 blue squares and like a crown. That is literally a quest where you interact with them, and I've been doing them recently in Arborstone.
It's funny that they don't want to just do that though.
I think they are, because in Arborstone and End of Dragons, after you complete the story, there's like 5 quests you can do in Arborstone, and there's a quest that you can do in House Zuhelzer. And I recently just went and did this, where you go on a journey with Valyria, and it includes Detective Rama, and you go through their family history, and like there's a lot of House Zuhelzer stuff. So I really appreciate that in End of Dragons they have popped this up, and it makes sense that they inundated Arborstone with those side quests, because it's a meeting hub for people to kind of see it. But UI wise, it's still in the achievements, which just doesn't feel right. And then you brought up New Kining City, and I'm like, it is very sparse in terms of like the events there. So I'm like, if it was populated more with side quests to go and learn about the different districts, and
that'd be cool,
dealing with people's like marketplaces, or like exterminating like a rat population or whatever, like, oh, we have an infestation in Old Kining, and like also the undead there, like there is more potential with that system, and I think they've begun to embrace it more so. But from a UI perspective, I would love to see a little bit more tailoring with that.
There's no log. Like the log is your achievements, and like, Rook said, like we've said many times in the past, like the UI and everything else. I think there's a point in time, and I think Guild Wars 2 started to do it ever since Heart of Thorns, where they were like, you know what? We're an MMORPG, and we kind of just need to realize that, like in terms of the world of like, everyone else is doing this stuff, and there's just language, and there's just understanding that in an MMORPG you have quests, in an MMORPG you have raids, in an MMORPG you have dungeons, you have gear, treadmill to some point, to some extent, and you have some kind of leveling system at endgame, whether or not it's vertical, horizontal, whatever, the diagonal. Is some of it, and you've seen like from Heart of Thorns, they added raids, they added squads, they added, which effectively raid frames. They've added mounts, obviously. They've added so many things in other games that do exist, fishing, as a craft, that they have started to get there. But like someone said, I think it was Osmos, like literally, and we said this before, the content is literally sitting there, but most people will just never play it. And yes,
and I think it's a problem because it shows up so late in the game that this new UI element that you don't know about pops in during the expansions, and you're like, when you're going in to the map, game though, it's as well, so Chris. Small. What?
Yeah. Like core game as well. Like if you get precursor core 1 legendaries, you can get them. You can get the precursor,
you can get them.
They're essentially,
but I wouldn't really count
well.
I mean, they are quest lines, but they're not like you go talk to someone. It's just like it drops. But when you go talk to someone, it pops up so late. The icon is very small, and when you press the map, it doesn't really show up. It has to be like in proximity, and it's very small as well. So it could be signaled a little bit better. And I also think that people might not do it because it really is just for the lore and the story, which I appreciate. But people do enjoy those like cool skins. And I would have loved after I finished the Rama quest if I got like a cool, like his hat or something. Like that would have been a great reward for that.
Yeah, or a mini event or something. Yeah.
I mean, side quests usually do have some kind of reward, Sorry, go ahead, Boots. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I was gonna just say that now that you're mentioning it, yeah. So those side quests, the side stories, it's true, they're questing, and I think the only thing missing from them is some sort of a better tie-in to a UI to point them out to people. Because for the longest time, yeah, we've just had events, and those were kind of like the questing we did. Events and hearts. We've kind of gone far away from hearts at this point, but the fact that events happen so like they're repeatable, they happen over and over again. I feel like that is something that Guild Wars 2 for me it felt lacking, and now that we have the side stories as permanent things that once you've done them, they are things that I have affected the world in this way now. It's not, oh, it's happening again, oh shit kind of situation. Yeah. And so yeah, I'm happy it's there. I think that maybe just tie in with the UI a little bit better.
Yeah, because quests are their own category of content. Like when you think about a game, you think about an RPG, which MMORPG, right? A quest log is a fundamental part of that kind of exploration and connection to the world. And while I do think people are always incentivized by rewards, yes, for sure. I am like you, Kerf, and I think there is not an unconsiderable amount of people that are like this as well, that want to do story. They want to do quests. They want lore. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, for me, I think when you're looking at achievements and you're looking at quests, those are two very different things for me, especially in an MMO context. And yet, because they're all kind of merged in there, players don't really know what to do. And when I think about some of the... Because
they think they're achievements. Because an achievement is like exactly like I say, an achievement in the ESO is just a thing you kind of pick up sometimes, or you specifically aim for that one thing. It's not just like a list of things. Sorry. And
you like strive for it and you grind for it, or you try and do this thing for it, or it's a long-term bonus collection, or it's a whatever, right? Yeah. So like even when I think about some of the really cute little things that I love about this narrative that I think even make you feel more in love with characters, because I saw in the chat the question like, what kind of side stuff is there even outside of maybe the Sun Spear stuff and things like that? I mean, I do think about stuff like the Griffin. I think about stuff like
anything.
The bonus. Oh yeah, but like the bonus Aurene collections, which I honestly believe are more like quests, like getting her all the toys and then being able to like play with her in her little egg chamber, getting all of the things for the Sunspear refuge and everything else around that, and the lore you learn about the different groups and factions and stuff there. I mean, they even highlighted some of these little side stories in things like the Return 2, where they had you do like the Jin story on the season 4 map and stuff like that. I think all the content is there. I would just love to actually have them codify them as quests and like move them into a quest log. And so that like, as you go through the story and you hit that, it's like, a little thing appears. It's like, hey, you completed the first of this episode. Check out the side quest and the side quest log. And you click on that. And then those are side quests you can do.
What do you think like hubs would be, like traditional hubs are necessary for that kind of thing? Or do you think it's something that could be...
They kind of already do. Like the Sunspear place is a hub, Arborstone a hub. Eye of the North is a hub to go and do it for the seasonal or the Return 2 events. But like, and I don't think they need to go, like you have to go back to the person. Sometimes organically through the quest, you will go back to just touch base to continue that story, but then you go off and do other things. It feels very organic. Even their quest... We'll just cut the crap and just call them quests. The quests that are in the game, they do feel very organic, and they don't feel like, oh, I'm just going to kill 5 things and be done with it.
Well, that's the thing, like trying to keep on top of what the podcast is supposed to be about. Like comparing it to other MMORPGs, which is kind of what we're doing in a very general way, because it's just all other MMORPGs, and then there's Guild Wars 2. Because like Warhammer Online, which is where the system comes from essentially, and also Rift with the Rifts, and then had both. Like they had both. They had events, they had the main story, and then they had side quests as well. So there's all of this stuff going on, and then they had World v World, and then they had scenarios, which was like structured PvP. But then they had like actual quests for PvP as well, like actual quests for World v World. Go out and kill X amount of people, come back, you get a fish sandwich. I don't know why I said that. But like, fish sandwiches are okay, I mean, it can give you a buff, I don't know. But like, do you know what I mean? I do miss that. Like in ESO, it's really, really cool to that story and just developing the map. Like, they're so good. And the map can change in certain instances in different parts of the areas. Final Fantasy 14, I know it's like, you know, the same thing as other MMORPGs, you know, like World of Warcraft, etc. It's fine. You know, I don't mind. As long as the story is good and like I am exploring a zone and it's giving me something new that I have not experienced before, then I'm good with it. And normally that is the case, hopefully. In what, like, New World is an MMO which came out a year ago. Literally just does the same thing that every other MMORPG has done since the start. Fetch quests. Like, and it's, as long as it's good, people will do it. But like, if you cannot see someone with a marker above their head and it's hidden in the UI, 90% of the community will not do it. Like, I'm being generous there as well. Like, I guarantee there are quests people have not done, and there are
I've definitely
so
not done
many.
a lot of things. I've interacted with a lot of NPCs that have the crown above their heads and then forgotten about it entirely.
Yeah, but we're talking about just general.
I've gotten in the
achievements
habit to
though, as well.
track it. I've had to make the like the conscious effort to like hit the right click track.
That's right.
Yeah,
it won't show up.
That. Honestly, it would be much easier if you just had a quest log. And J, which is the key that we usually use in all other games to open up the journal for quest journal. In Guild Wars 2 was finally added as a hotkey, but for what? For activating one of 3 different mastery things.
Oh, really? That's funny.
But that's been changed now. That's been changed. You could actually assign those 3 things to other stuff, any other button you want. So J is technically free now.
J is free. Free the J. They already freed the J technically this week. Last week.
So just briefly pulling on the topic of what could Guild Wars 2 like take or borrow and be inspired by from other MMOs, a class quest system.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I forgot.
Absolutely. For like teaching players the very fundamental mechanics of that profession, and also
for lore reasons.
Rewards are good. Each profession, when you're going through the character creation, you can pick a cool profession-specific gear piece or weapon or whatever. And I think that'd be great, like reward where like you do 3 quests. When you reach those levels to learn like the fundamentals, you unlocked your specializations. Go to your trainer, learn how to equip that, play around with whatever, what you know.
Wait,
and then when you get to the elite
is that
specs,
separate to the
at
quest,
least I would love it, just account bound. I would love to have to speak with the representative of that elite specialization to unlock it, and then do like 1 or 2 quests to get it started. I don't know.
EOD for you, like I remember when we saw the representatives, like I remember your face. I was like, Creeper's gonna love this.
I was so happy.
And you were like, so happy. I was happy as well, because when we saw the Hollowsmith in Path of Fire, do you remember name? But in the first city, the first major city, which everyone knows.
Amnoon, Crystal Oasis.
There you go. And he's just sitting in the field there, and there's always that event that spawns, and there's the first Hollowsmith you see, and you see all the different abilities that come up. I'm like, yes, someone's got the elite spec. And I remember thinking, I can't remember who I was talking to this about. We were like, there's going to be like this whole lore thing, there's going to be everything. And he just says something like, I'm Hollowsmith or something, or not even that. Like, or he remarks.
It's very topical lore.
Yeah, it's nothing.
The Mirage is like, I like to paint and I like make sand mesmer stuff. It's like, okay.
I like to paint. Oh no, it's disappointing though. It's a little bit like you're just like, I love those kinds of.
And it's an MMO RPG, and sometimes I feel like the RPG value, the RPG element, it isn't forgotten on the main narrative, but those little side pockets that really flesh out a world and flesh out civilizations, that's what I feel like is perhaps the missing element of Guild Wars 2.
Yeah, Obi said it. There you go. They were class trainers. We forgot. We know
they were class trainers. Yeah. We hire them. Bring them back.
They just didn't do anything. You just went to them and bought the things, right?
Yeah, you bought skills and traits. But instead of buying them, they just give you instructions and like teach you about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Honestly, I think Guild Wars 2 has grown so much in their storytelling. I think we have seen them push more to include a variety of this content. But like we said, I think that drawing from other MMOs to pull some things like a dedicated quest log, really codifying and, implementing a way to make it more visible and accessible to even see the side quest content that's technically in the game. I would love something, yes, like you were saying, Karoof, with like job trainers and things like that, or like a job quest line. Even if it was only for elite specs moving forward, I liked that they put the trainers in. And like many of us know, there are achievements that give you like various pieces of gear for various elite specs that you have. But do I feel as though that in and of itself really introduces me and immerses me in the fantasy of that elite specialization? Do I feel like I understand how they train in a really direct way? Do I feel like I'm a part of that order? Do I feel like it gives me that kind of quest cushion that some other games do? No. And so I would love to see them do something like that where, you can feel that strong connection to your class and what it is, and actually have more there, because I think a lot of people may not even realize, unless they just stumble across it or they hear us talking about it or they knew to keep an eye out for it, that those elite spec people are even around the maps.
Yeah, no, unless you see them shouting out like, do you want a sandwich, there's just nothing really much going on there.
So yeah, I think that's a big thing that Guild Wars 2 can keep learning from. I think they've also for a very long time done action immersive storytelling better than almost any other game that's out there.
Truly.
But I think that they shouldn't be afraid to also lean into this wave of MMO players that are coming in who, like we've been talking about, love the RPG element of MMOs. Give us more of those fully cinematic cutscenes. Don't be afraid to take a bit more time and a detour in zones to really flesh it out and really give us a narrative. Because although I personally love New Kaineng, I love it. Everybody's like, it's so empty and it's big and it's hard to walk around, and I'm like, I still love it. I think it's beautiful, and I'm obsessed with this place. But would I have rather seen the zone been half as big but be cram-packed with narrative and story and some side quests and a robust thing with, I know that's not how, like, the teams are different, map design and stuff, I get it. But in a smaller company like ArenaNet, I think they do have to really consciously think about, many of the team work on a lot of things simultaneously. So I think there are times where I would like to see them lean more into that, because they have a great writing team, and we are seeing many other games right now shine in that RPG element. I think 14 really leading the charge in that, and that they have structured the game to basically be a single player RPG as far as its narrative arc, design, etc. go. And lo and behold, it's paying off. Many other games shied away from that because they thought that's not what people want from an MMO. But the thing is, I think none of us are ready to let go of the worlds and characters we love. And an MMO is incredible because it gives you more. It gives you years of story, a world that you can share half a lifetime with. And I'd like to see them continue to build confidence. Literally, I'd like to see them continue to build confidence in trusting that the player base can enjoy the world and setting, and that they can take a little bit more room and time to tell that in a cinematic narrative way that's a little directed, as opposed to just free-form exploration.
Agreed. That kind of, one of the ways they could do that kind of ties into something that comes in a later point on the whatever it's called, the document,
it's just a document,
which is
the only reason I call it a document is because it's in Google Documents. That's it. It's the Bible. It's the Lightbringer Bible. I'm gonna call it.
That's right. Faction/rep grind possibility added to Guild Wars 2.
Oh, masteries.
Masteries. No, not masteries. A faction rep grind.
Essentially masteries.
I mean, you could add it to masteries, but no, I think this would be very different. I think this would be very different.
The New York stuff.
I was just thinking of how you would like funnel it in without creating a separate thing, but making it different. Yeah.
But my understanding
is the same but different.
That since it's factions, you allow yourself to a certain faction, and it would be kind of weird if you decide to unallow yourself with that faction and allow yourself to a different faction that you lose the mastery. So I feel like it wouldn't be tied to masteries in that.
some important choices that you have to make in the content.
Maybe not. Yeah, and then but
maybe it's character bound.
You
character bound mastery
tied to that as well. You could do character bound, but I mean, why rob your character of the choice? Like once he or she has been allied to a faction, then you discover something you don't like about them. Why? Why can't you leave that faction?
No, I mean,
you can,
I'm on board with you with the idea. I do like the idea of being able to choose factions and groups, right? Because we get to even choose our group at the start. You go Priory, you go Whispers.
Yeah, that's
people still ask each other that question, like, which one are you? What did you pick? Even though that part of the story is so long gone at this point.
It's
so
deleted.
Siren go by.
We're just a master of everything now.
But I agree with you in that other games do have something more like a rep grind. Now, I hate it in World of Warcraft.
Okay, well, is this the official start of the rep grind segment?
I think it is.
This is the part. This is on the thing. We can skip through
Boots
PvP
is the
and
pushing force in this, and we appreciate it.
I will move that to another area. It's okay. Let's go with it. So, what should we have a quick? Because if there are a lot of people, funnily enough, that actually don't play other MMORPGs other than Guild Wars 2, and Guild Wars 2 is their first MMORPG. So, Rook, do you want to start off with explaining what a rep grind might be, and whether or not you say that to the specific game you play is up to you?
So a rep grind essentially is just a reputation grind, which means that there's some sort of faction or group that you want to learn about, ally yourself with, or, endear yourself to them. And so in many other MMOs, you see, especially when it comes to like a new race that you encounter or a new cultural group that you encounter, that MMOs have integrated this as a part of exploring the world. I mean, even if you think about RPGs, right? You get to a new map in an RPG, you meet this cute new bunny race, and then you learn about who the bunny race are, usually through a series of side quests. So rep grinds have sort of become something that can be repeatable content in many games that will have various stages of, we're strangers, we're friends, we're allies, we're trusted allies, we're these sorts of things, where as you work through it and you do things to help them learn about their way of life, so on and so forth, you become more respected and trusted in their eyes, and you oftentimes get like rewards affiliated with them.
Kind of got an art of
stuff like that. We see this happen in a lot of different games. In World of Warcraft, it was a way for a long time to unlock new playable kind of like limited races, but the rep grinds were miserable, and I hated them. And although the story might be interesting, did you do that? They've changed it.
I never did it because I was
It's still bad. It's still not great, but like it's better.
Well, I quit the game. I quit World of Warcraft. In retrospect, there are many reasons, but I officially quit it because I was trying to do the Nightborn. Is it Nightborn?
Elf, the elf one. Yeah. Daddy elf.
And I was so...
what it was called.
I was so sick of it and so uninspired by it and so frustrated by how long it took. And like some of the things that were required for it were also actually pretty arduous, or like very difficult timing to like do this thing or find this one enemy or get this one thing that you had to do. And it was the worst, and I quit the game.
That's why you quit the game? Interesting.
I feel like that gives rep grinds a bad name, and I don't know of any examples where rep grind is a good thing. But I will say that in my brain, there is an interesting way of doing faction/rep grind.
Well, how about
and that's the
that's
the transition I was going to do. Yes,
do that.
So World of Warcraft, terrible. Bad example. It was oftentimes very time gatey, very frustrating, very annoying. It took a million years. Complete waste of your time.
Yeah.
But then, in contrast, Final Fantasy XIV has, I think, done something more clever and fun with them. It's taken a bit of time. They had to refine their process as well. But they're like an incredibly good leveling tool now. You unlock new mounts, new rewards, all sorts of things regarding it.
Really?
And tribe has its own unique quest line. So you have cutscenes when you reach new thresholds. You have a cast of characters. You have some sort of little hub that they are a part of, that as you progress in helping them and stuff like that, it actually changes on the maps for you. So you watch as they build up their business or their settlement or their hub. And you learn a lot about not only just the race themselves, but the region, right? How do they eat? How do they fish? How do they, create goods? What are the creatures in this area? What is the culture? What are their relations with other groups and factions? How have they been affected by certain events? So in those regards, I actually really enjoy that about 14's tribe quests, as they're known. And I think Guild Wars 2 already has something like it in that we have all of these different factions. I think about the Ixali in Heart of Thorns, but by doing the mastery track for the Ixal, do I feel like I've learned literally anything about them?
Yeah.
No.
Nice.
There was a lot of talk during the press of Heart of Thorns, and they were like, yeah, these lore tracks, and you'll be able to learn their language and like find out
Yeah,
these
when
secrets.
they said
And it's
learn
like,
their language, I was like, oh wow, that's new and different.
So,
That's very unique.
I think there's yes, I think it could be
I think
done
there
really
is.
well. I think it could be done really well, and I
agree.
really would love to see it. So what they kind of did in factions, Guild Wars 1 factions,
Okay.
have that system come back again.
Oh, wait. What was the system in Guild Wars 1 though? I can't remember.
You allied with the Kurziks or the Luxons, but I feel like in Guild Wars 2, you could
the
ally
campaign
with
known as factions.
Yes.
Yeah, but that wasn't really the same though, was it?
Well,
it was.
It is.
I mean, it wasn't
I
like
remember
your
I did it
kind
very
of-
recently. I had to like build up favor with the Kurziks team.
Yeah, and there's
Wasn't
a
it like
bunch
your
of
main-
storyline stuff tied to it as well.
But wasn't
It's
it like your main quest line though? Like you had to
It's
do
part
it?
of the main quest.
Well, you needed to
do.
get through
You
it,
had to,
but there
yeah,
were a bunch
no.
of side quests that you could do.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess I'm thinking
And
rep
then-
grind being very sidey, like something where you have to kind of grind it
Yeah.
for what Rook was
And then the
talking about,
Kurziks
kind
and
of thing.
Luxons would fight over the map in the middle. And I
guess
feel
that
like
can be
that is
cool.
one thing that we could take from other MMOs in Guild Wars 2 is that you don't really have that except for in instanced world versus world or PvP. You don't have open world PvP. And I feel like if you could tie rep grind to factions to and then have them fight each other, and then you get to choose your side, and then you get to
That's what we got
learn
World
things
v
about
World
them
for,
and
like
so on and so
people.
forth
Can
to
you
make it
imagine
work.
Guild Wars 2?
PvE balance and PvP.
I know. I would love
Very
it.
funny. Okay. Well, I like the. I actually played factions. Forgot I'd played factions, and then went to play again on stream as an unlock, and I was like, I played this on stream 2 years ago. It was recorded, and I was like, oh yeah, completely forgot. I was in school, and there was a lot going on. Okay, that is my excuse.
I do like the idea of factions and reputation systems, and I think the mastery lines could allow for that. It just it wasn't as exciting in terms of the reward structure, and it wasn't tied to any quest lines that you had to do, which would probably be a great way. And talking about this concept of a traditional quest log where you're in Jaka Itzel and like you have 3 side quests to do, and you go and like talk to Kanamiatli and like the leader, and you deal with all of that stuff. And just using Heart of Thorns as an example because I'm a Heart of Thorns stan, but and the Exalted, there was a lot of lore potential with those, and I think it would be really, especially expansion 4, how are they going to change their package? How are they going to elevate themselves and produce something more novel that we haven't seen from the other expansions? And I think that could be an interesting avenue to go down.
I agree. Also, I realized that I said Ixali, which is a tribe in Final Fantasy XIV, but I meant Itzel.
Yeah,
It was similar enough. It was similar enough. I was like, okay.
I'm not gonna call you out on
I
that
will
random
say
thing.
having open world PvP with changing maps based on what faction has things taken over would be very difficult to implement with a mega server system.
Well, what New World? So New World has.
And without any map queue system, because you can't you have to be
Yeah.
like right click spamming on people's frames.
Well, that's why
Yeah,
you
it
need
would
to
be
have worlds.
almost impossible.
That's why you need to have worlds. So the way New World does it is that they have servers with a maximum of 2,000 people capacity that can be online at any one time.
Yeah.
So it's like you need that's when you need worlds. But like. Yeah, I mean, rep grinds, I think the rep grind I remember the most is from Rift, and it was in specific dailies that you had to do to get a specific shell husk thing to upgrade your stats by very min-maxing. It's a very, very min-max game, and there was just like to gain 2 or 3 stats in willpower or whatever. But there was mounts and stuff. I kind of like what Rook was saying about the rewards in Final Fantasy 14, actually. I'm like, I kind of want to, that makes me want to think about looking at that game, maybe getting myself involved in some of that rep grind, give myself some new mounts and having a look at a few bits and pieces there. So that's quite cool. I think as long as you can tie... it's important that I did say earlier, you know, if you've got a good story, I'll do it for that main reason and that reason alone. I realize not everyone is like that, but I think in a rep grind, when you're doing something which is very repetitive, and rep grind is called a rep grind for a reason, repetition, but also repeating. You repeat things
that's
so
like the
much.
reason it's called rep grind.
Yeah, I know why it's called that, but there's enough.
I just realized
the grind part is the repeating part.
Like no. The rep, repeat. Come on, it was a joke. It was
representative, Jeff.
It was a good joke as well. Okay,
I guess
representative.
so.
I'm just trying to be funny.
But funnily enough, the masteries kind of function like that because you actually won't progress that mastery reward track if you're not in that map. So it kind of works already.
Okay,
Continue.
But anyway, yes. But like if you're repeating stuff over and over and over and over again, it's not new, it's not unique. Whereas with a story, it's new, unique. You're getting something new. The reward is the joy of doing the story, right? But like in rep grinds, but you said with Final Fantasy 14, as you rep, you actually do get that storyline. So you get the storyline and you get rewards.
Yes, you progress the story. You watch as like the things you build and upgrade. You get new tiers of further in, which I think is all. It makes it feel much more rewarding with each step because you do feel like you're going somewhere and you're doing something and there's a direction to it. With this as well, I thought that you would put dailies just in general in this category. So I had the thought as we were talking about it as well that I think recently we've seen with Elder Scrolls Online that semi-recently, it's been a little while now, but they themselves have a problem with, shall we say, loot crates in the game. And I actually think it's a little bit less excusable in ESO because they do make you pay for the game. And if you want to play seriously, you do need to have the ESO Plus and other things like that, although technically you can play it without. But all of those things to say, one of the things that has been, I think, a little bit of a needle point for players a sticking point for players in Guild Wars 2 has been the Black Lion chests. And of course, there are ways to get keys for them in the game, and many people can grind them, which I think is already great. But like ESO recently had to do for currency for items that come from their loot crates.
Endeavors.
Endeavors, yes.
Gems. Sorry, gems. Oh yeah, there's the crossover. The endeavors are things you earn from quests, which you do dailies, and the gems are from loot crates that you can trade in items for. Yeah,
but endeavors is what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
Endeavors were a daily questing system that they introduced that like pop up in your feed, and it can be anything. I mean, it can be like go to this zone, kill these things. It can be like, you know, craft 5 things. It can be whatever it is. But if you do those, you get a certain amount of currency that you can convert to then save and buy individual items out of the loot crates, so that if there's like one thing you really want that comes up in a seasonal loot crate, you can just play a whole bunch and save a ton because it is not like a huge conversion rate. But you can play a whole bunch and save a ton and then be able to invest in the thing that you want. And I think if they did something like that in Guild Wars 2, it would be great. We already have our kind of daily quests that pop up, but if there were some bonus ones as well.
Which one, gems or something, or a currency that could
give you gems, or they could even give you something like a currency to buy an item, or like something out of the Black Lion chest, or to buy a Black Lion chest. Key, I guess you could do would be simplest, but I think it would be fun if they did something like that where, you know, you could save up pieces of it or save over time, because a lot of people do still find it really frustrating that if they want that new skiff skin that's only in the Black Lion chest or something, that they have no choice but to buy a ton of Black Lion chests and try to get it. So if they did something with statuettes, or I don't know, just something with that, I think that could be a good addition.
Yeah, Endeavor System's good. It's just like, you need a lot of currency for that. But at least it is a newer system to give access to the shop a little bit more. The ESO store is a podcast that I'm just like kind of like, god damn, that store is expensive. That gives me some feelings, that one does. Okay, let me see. You're talking about Red Grind. I'm going to do a part 2 for next week. That's what I'm going to do. Rather than rush through everything else, we're going to do a part 2 on this, because we're coming close to the end of the I've got 2 sections. The other section I've got is called what features in other MMORPGs / live services do you like that could be added adjusted to fit Guild Wars 2. So it's not specifically Guild Wars 2 learning from other games, it's importing something else, and how can Guild Wars 2 kind of adapt it, which I think is different from what we talked about. There's things like housing in there. We're not going to get a housing conversation done in 20 minutes. Do you know what I mean? That could be a stream. And we've got community goals, we've got character creation, and how that could be done. You know, I feel I want to give a podcast to that section because I think it would actually be really fun. And there's loads of games to think and talk about. There's also things like sailing, which is in like arcade. There's mounted combat. There's things like Guild Wars 1 features we want to see in Guild Wars 2, which is actually the first podcast I ever did for LightBringers as well, way back. So there's loads of those things I want to fit in for next week. I see a finger up in the air.
Yeah, I would say yes. This is definitely a 2 podcast.
Yeah. I'm not going to rush it.
There is one thing I want to mention before I forget, though.
Okay.
It was when I was writing down stuff for this podcast.
Unbelievable. Still can't believe it.
I know. I
I
even looked stuff up on the internet.
Shit. Has anyone got sound effects for that? Wait.
Research.
There you go. And I found a comment by somebody on some post somewhere.
You did reading as well.
That made me, it wasn't even talking about Guild Wars 2, it was talking about MMOs in general.
Yeah.
And it made me think about Guild Wars 2, because one of the things I love about Guild Wars 2 is that it respects your time, and more than most other MMOs, I'd say, if not all other MMOs. And it ease of use, quality of life, it's all very good in that respect. No, flight pass, you could just take a waypoint, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. This
comment was that for them, what makes an MMO interesting sometimes, what makes it more of a game, more of a world that you live in, is the exact opposite of that. When things are arduous, when you have to walk through this forest all the way in order to do something, like what you were talking about earlier with making the wood pile or whatever.
Yeah, it's an effort.
Yeah. The effort that you have to put into it makes it more of a world and less of a game, I guess.
New World then. I mean, there's a whole genre almost for that kind of thing, which I think was created in part because of MMORPGs. I guess survival games to a degree have those elements. I think New World actually was like that at the start, honestly, and a lot of people hated it. Like, they really didn't like it. But there is a game called Mortal Online 2, which is actually a lot like, which is ridiculous. Like, you can craft any weapon, you can craft any like kind of gear, stats, everything. You can use different weapons and different hands that are just ridiculous. Like, this game, I just go and look up Mortal Online 2. Like, I'm telling you, it was ridiculous game. The community is a bit ridiculous as well. I'm going to try and play on the stream soon. But yes, there are many people that like that kind of game. You're right.
And I think we're at the point in Guild Wars 2 where it's unrealistic to add that kind of aspect to
Guild Wars 2 player community is not that community. It just isn't.
Yeah.
I think in the form of quests, that's the one possible area, because
that's different. Yeah.
It does take more time to get that story, and it is a bit more self-governing, and you have to have that dedication. But that's the only area that I see Guild Wars 2 really going.
Guild Wars 2 is casual. Like, it's a casual game,
you can make it. But I would say that
you can make it as immersive, hard as you want.
The immersiveness in the world, the way to get immersed in the world, for me, was through exploration in Guild Wars 2, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and I still do. I would say, though, that nowadays, though, the mounts make it so easy to explore that it kind of removes the immersiveness a little bit.
We both have problems with the mounts for different reasons.
It's weird. Yeah.
But at the same time, I love the mount. So it's I have a, it's
well, the thing, you said it perfectly. Like, the game respects your time, and the game is sold on the premise that for a lot of people, you can just jump in and out. Like, there aren't probably, other than, World v World and other, you do not have to farm for things to gain power or to gain strength in the game for a long time. You just don't have to do that. You can get exotic gear and play everything in the game, You can. Well, other than maybe Fractals, which we were kind of talking about earlier. But like, you know, Ascended like is pretty easy to get. You can even get it in PvP and it can drop sometimes. You can get it from Marks. You can get it in World v World. You can get it wherever you want. You know, it's not difficult to get. You do maybe have to follow many guides. But like, it's easy to get. And Guild Wars 2 is just that place where, you know, they get their peak player numbers when they insert content into the game, a story, which like they do with any MMORPG, but you don't have to pay for it, so it's even better. So that is the injection of players, and that's, you know, when they return and do the things, you can drop in and out. I haven't played Guild Wars 2 that much in the last couple of weeks because I've been busy, and just because I want to play other games, you know. And I drop back in, and I'm like, in PvP, it didn't matter if I didn't do things, because my power is the same as it was, you know, at launch, actually, PvP, because there's no stats. But like, it's just leaderboards. In raids, nothing's changed because I've got legendary armor. Like, you know, and I know that's a very unprivileged in that place, but still, if I had Ascended armor, I'd still have Berserkers that's been available since, you know, year 1, 2. You know, that kind of thing. If you can go back to a game and you can still feel like you can do something in it, you've still got that power and your access. And that's what it's about, right? Accessibility. That's what Guild Wars 2 does. That's what ArenaNet does really well. They do give you a lot of access to a lot of things very easily. It's just surprising when they hide it sometimes because the way you're confused, because they do so many things so very well. And then they gate stuff like mount skins on the store, for example, like the questing system and the wonderful story and content that is within their achievements. It's just behind some weird system that no one really understands why that was a thing in the first place. And, you know, there are lessons to be learned from other MMORPGs. This is why I wanted to do this podcast in the first place. And I think I'm really looking forward to next week, where we can think about things that aren't in Guild Wars 2. And how things like your housing one is specifically something I've wanted to do. We talked about it before. I'm going to bring in, I think, Harold maybe for that one, and one other person who wants to talk about housing as well as all the people here. I've got 6 slot, you know, overlay, so I might as well just pull in some more people. And so if there's a housing specific person that anyone wants to come in on that one that's done some content around housing in the past, like, let me know. But I'm going to pretty much end it there. It's been a really, really good one. They're all really good.
This was fun.
They're all really good. I just want to come up with more stuff like this, where we're thinking a little bit more outside the game sometimes, and comparing. And I think at the moment as well, it's a little bit difficult to create content for a podcast with Guild Wars 2 when you talked about everything to a degree. I'm good at really siphoning things, but I'm getting to the point now it's actually quite difficult. I've still got a long list of stuff, so don't worry. The podcast is still going to be weekly. Next week, we're going to be back about the same time, 1 p.m.-ish, 1:30 p.m.-ish, Pacific. Other things. Nothing really. The podcast is doing really great. YouTube views still, people are loving it. Keep watching it. Give us feedback, comments. If you want to hear us talk about something, even if it's just for a little bit of the time during the stream, I'll call you out and we'll be like, yeah, Thingy wanted to know about this, what our opinions are. We could have a viewer questions. Podcast.
I was just about to say that. Yeah. I think that would be so fun.
I actually think that would be a good one.
Viewers.
No.
Write a question in chat.
I like.
No.
Yeah, Boots is always the one to say I have to go for
whoever
dinner.
has the two best questions Jebro will pick you. I'm not doing it. Jebro, you do it, and we will answer.
The super chats have gone. Damn it! I could have done it for that. Not super chat. Sorry, whatever it's called. Yeah, if you donate 200,000 bits to Extra Life, then yes, you can have your question answered.
That's $2,000.
I can't remember the number I said. Honestly, yes. I think it's 200,000. It is a lot of money. Yes. So, Lagos playable race went. No, that's not a question. It's not a question we could ask. It's something we could also have a discussion on. I mean, we've also talked about that, I think, in the past with playable races. Okay. End of the podcast. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to check out all the things where you can. Please don't forget, if you're on YouTube, or anywhere where you can like it or follow it. Follow the podcast, comment, subscribe on YouTube. It helps the algorithm a lot. Ever since I started saying that, it feels like that helps. So do it, even if I'm lying. Just do it again. I mean, I can talk about my hair routine tomorrow on another stream. I'm going to be playing Warhammer 40k, so it's going to be cool. Boots, what do you do when you do it?
You can find me on YouTube at World Avengers and The End. Also Twitter.
You can just find me on Twitter. I'll just be there.
Yeah, just inside the code.
Inside the code. Like Neo. Okay. You are the one.
Neo,
Excellent.
I know Kung Fu.
Do you? Actually.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
believe
Sure.
it.
Cool. Kroof, what do you do? What do you do?
Hi, you can find me at Kroof on YouTube and here at Twitch and on Twitter. There's very few Kroofs in the world, and usually it's me.
There is
but
only
thank
one
you.
Kroof.
Aw.
There is no one like you.
You're so sweet. Anyways,
Yeah, take that how you want.
I have a bunch of Guild Wars 2 videos over on my YouTube channel, and I had a great time talking about Guild Wars 2 today. So thank you for having me on.
No worries, good one. There is another person called Rookery. That's such a random name.
What a weird pronunciation.
Rookery. That's like a weird. I can't even know. I can't fuck that one off. I'm sorry.
right.
Honestly, just
Sure.
what do you do?
Yeah.
Where do you do it?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Rookery. And you can find me at twitch.tv, Rookery. And you can also find me on YouTube at Rookery. And you can find me on Twitter at Rookery_. So if you'd like more of this nonsense and a lot of love and excitement and big old emotions for the games that we enjoy, both Guild Wars 2 and other MMOs, check it out.
I'm red. That doesn't happen often. Just it was the movement as well. He did better than I did.
Uh-huh.
I feel bad now. I didn't put enough effort
I was
in.
about
Yeah.
to respond to something in chat, and I decided that was a very bad idea.
I mean, you can respond to something as long as you're being nice to
Well, it
people.
was if you Google Kroof is the first hit, and then I was gonna respond if you Google, and then I was gonna put. Anyway, never mind.
Okay.
Text me later. Message me later. I want to know. Message me later.
No, you don't. It's fine.
And on that note, thank you very much for watching the podcast. I've been Jebro, the host of the show, but you can come and check out the channel if you want during the week. At the moment, the schedule is everywhere because my client list has just shot up to like 20. So I
Hey,
don't know.
congratulations!
Yeah, it's thank you.
That's a big leap.
I just
Yeah.
went from 4 to 20. Yeah, it was. Well, actually, I've got 16, but I've got 4 in the wind kind of thing at the moment. But like, I could
Do
have
you
up to
advertise
30.
like is it you get set up through the company you're working for?
Oh no,
or do
yeah,
you
I
adver-
work for a company, but but people pick me based on my profile.
Right.
So it's like,
Did you like say I'm the video game therapist?
there's
'Cause
video
that's pretty
games in
cool.
there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's
I
why
sell
it
that
shot
shit.
up so fast.
I
That's pretty
sell
cool.
that shit, dude.
Yeah.
I'm live in Seattle, so
Find
like
your
it
niche.
just absolutely. In anything
The
you
one
do,
thing that you
that's what
don't
gotta do.
help with is video game addiction, because that is just that's done for.
Video game addiction, I have feelings about as a phrase. So yeah, it's you can be basically addiction is about you can be addicted to anything in the world as long as if you are doing something to the point where it is controlling where you cannot function in your life. That is an addiction. So that is what they've done.
I'm
with video
addicted to an
games.
outro. So Jebro, hit the outro.
Sorry, he started it.
did.
If you get me started talking about
I'm
therapy stuff,
incorrigible.
I love this subject. I love this subject, man. I'm good to go. We can talk about it another time. Though. Okay, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to have a sandwich, fish sandwich, if you want to. If you don't, fuck off. This is not the greatest outro in the world. No, this is just a tribute. So we'll see you next time on the LightBringers Podcast, episode 28. Thank you very much to my guests, Rookery, Crew, Hoof, and I'm sorry.
Bro.
Goodbye.
Bro.